we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
It's damn near May. Let's stop this. There's Varla Ventura right there. We bring her in early because, well, we can't get enough Varla Ventura. She's going to watch us and do the roll call here. Nightmare in the gold medal position. Race fan takes home the silver. Sweet Ann B with a bronze medal tonight. There's gorgeous Cindy. Thanks for coming on in. Simon from Australia. Mennonite Abe. Good to see you. There's Dutch Hank right there. Yeah, he's Dutch. Mark Longoria, nice to have you here. Awesome Ann Palmer. The gorgeous Kathy Evans. Stephen Finnegan. It's Granty Mercury. Granty Mercury has arrived. The show must go on, my friend. Black Dragon, our favorite veteran around here. How you doing, buddy? Nice to have you here. I know the Lip Blade is around here somewhere. There he is. The Lip Blade. Stephen Finnegan, how you doing, man? Nice to have you here. Matthew Kennedy, thanks for joining us as we continue on with Roll Call. And let's see, Drew Morris, good to have you here, my fan. And let's see, Papa Willie, the bodyguard, how you doing? Good to have you here. John Swan, thanks for coming on in. And there's the lovely Nikki, Chris Holm, good to have you here. And who else do we have? Well, let's take a little look. Robert Garcia, the lovely Dragonelle Stafford, thank you for joining us. Obi Flett and the gorgeous Dirt Road, nice to have you here. By the way, Dirt Road, she'll be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Moving on with roll call. Let's see who else we got. Vera Ray is here. She'll be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. A Muse, nice to have you here. Fapster, always a pleasure to have you here. Yay, what's happening? Nice to see you. Stu Gerson, Chubby Chaser, nice to have you here. And let's move on. The Michael Leger is here, everyone. The Michael Leger. Zen1, nice to see you back. Downshift, the gorgeous Fidgety Aura. Noble Patrick, Evan Walters. Good to have you all here. Plump Alien, welcome to SOR Chat. Goof Eater, what's happening? Thanks for coming on in. Peppa H, nice to see you. As we continue on with roll call, there's Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Philip Baca has arrived. And who else is joining us? George Hernandez, the gorgeous Simply Coco. Please give us an update on what you're drinking for tonight's show. We'd appreciate that. The lovely Natalie in the United Kingdom, good morning to you. Dazzling Donna Spencer, the gorgeous Kira, and Mr. Lurksalot are here. All right, the stunning Gloria has returned. Stephen, thank you so much for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. We really do appreciate that, Stephen. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so we appreciate it very, very much. Let's get the radio side started here. Come on. Come on. Come on. Let's go. You got to be kidding me right now. Doc from Wyoming, nice to see you. Mr. Gray Owl, Mr. Catfish, Dog Next Door. Jim Christie is here. The Jim Christie. Let's go like this. And let's go like this. Go like that. Go live. There we go. Whew, that was a close one. The stunning Liliopatra. Welcome back. And let's see here. Who else do we got? Digger Dog. Good to see you. And we're running out of time. Enzo is here. Alexander Pinedo Pinella, welcome to SOR Chat. We appreciate it. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show and our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Odyssey Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out the Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show for you tonight. We're getting into a lot of paranormal and hauntings with our favorite cryptid lady, Varla Ventura, tonight. Then in hour number 3, the Swamp Dweller is back for another edition of The Swamp, and the fedora-wearing John Hudson returns for the Unbiased UFO Report. Shirky Poo will have the news. As you all know, if you've listened to this show many, many moons, Varla Ventura is a monthly contributor to Spaced Out Radio, where she comes on in talking about all the monsters among us. Yeah, we call her the cryptid queen around here, as Varla is a published author. You can find all of her books at any major bookstore or on places like Amazon, or her website, which is varlaventura.net. So tonight, we usually try and take a different angle, and eventually in hour 2, we will take audience questions where it'll go in any direction possible, except the one we actually lay out. And it's funny because before every show, Varla and I get together and we're like, what are we talking about tonight? I don't know. Let's just wing it, she says. And I usually agree. So tonight's focus, we're going to be getting more into the paranormal side and hauntings and the scariness of ghost stories. Varla Ventura, I know you were very saddened that you missed us in Las Vegas, but we are so glad that you're here tonight. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I was, I think I mentioned to Dave, I had a lot of jealousy for not being there. I was so happy for everyone that went, but I certainly kind of stayed off social media for the weekend because I didn't want to see too many pictures to make me feel even sadder that I wasn't with you guys. But thanks for having me tonight. I'm doing okay. Yeah, hanging in. So hope everybody survived that experience.
Well, we barely did. We barely did. You know, I mean, we had a number of awesome, awesome people there. And to get to meet your fans and you know, you're a lot of the guests that I haven't met before. You know,
Right.
like I had
In
never
your
met
life.
Nicole Sackage. And her and I talk almost every day. I'd never met Tom Whitmore. Him and I talk once or twice a week. I'd never met Sean Cahill, and him and I talk once every couple weeks. You know, I mean, there were all these people that I had not met before. Katie Grabowski, another one. And never mind the fans. I mean, meeting the fans was incredible. Absolutely incredible. And you know, to hang out with them and shoot the breeze and talk some really cool stories, but more or less just hanging out and being one. That's what made it worth it. It wasn't the stories. It wasn't the event. It was just all of us together under one roof with the same priority of just being all one under the SOR banner. And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing for me. And I've slept with a smile the last couple nights, and I've been.
Aw, that's great. Well, your fans are just like the night. I mean, like I say this every time, but the chat room is just, I know you've got some like good monitors in there as well, but like the chat room, people are they're fun. They ask pointed questions, but they're kind to one another. There's not a lot of weirdness in there. And as a guest, I actually, up until probably like the third time I was on your show, remember I used to be like, I can't read the chat. Like, I don't participate in the chat. It's too much for me. I can't do a show and do the chat at the same time. And I would say that, for years, however, whatever, 15 years or so that I've been doing a lot of interviews and things, I've never really encountered a positive chat room. I've always encountered a chat room full of trolls, and people are either making, lewd comments or rude comments. And, hey, I'm rude and lewd like the rest of them. But as a guest on a show, it can be very distracting, and it can actually like really throw you off to see things like that. And so I think I was like, probably like maybe the third or fourth time I was on your show, you were like, it's really easy. Just you can just click on this thing and you can see the comments, but you can ignore them if you want. And then sometimes I would just not look at them. And then I just started realizing you got funny. Your audience is funny. They're kind. Yeah. So it's just, it's actually I think it's very unique. So I think you're cultivating something pretty different, honestly, in the world of the paranormal and the late night paranormal show. That you get a lot of animosity in there. It's kind of amazing.
We've seen it.
I know you've seen your fair share, and I know you've got some awesome monitors that help maintain the kind of environment that you want. But I can only imagine what that was like in real life. I mean, I'm sure it was so fun. So yeah, well,
we were saddened that you couldn't make it, and
me too.
And you know what? The good part about it is we're going to do it next year.
Oh yeah.
So Varla Ventura are going to be in Las Vegas next year.
I'm gonna book it now. Just book it now for next year, so that way we can kind of make sure it happens.
Well, you know what? We're going to be setting the dates here probably after this weekend for next year.
Oh, great! Yeah, no, I seriously will. I will commit to it.
It's either going to be the first week of May, or first weekend of May, or the third weekend of May, because in between that is Mother's Day. So that would not be a good time to go. So yeah, that's why we're booking it around that.
Great. Yeah.
So we'll let you know.
Works.
We will let you know.
My May is totally open next year. I don't even have to look.
Yeah, you better book it. You better book it. Let me tell you, lady. All right. We always have listeners tuning on in wondering, who's this Varla Ventura lady? You're one of the top cryptid writers in the horror and fictional genre, but it's not so fictional because you sit there and you are someone who delves into these deep stories that we see going on with people's experiences, and then you research the daylights out of them to write a big fabulous book on what we're doing here. So for you, being a writer and growing up in this field, how fun is it to be able to say that you are a writer or an author of monsters?
It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun, really. I mean, I definitely have still, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think, like all artists, I definitely have those moments of like, well, does this really count as writing if, I wrote this so many, it's very difficult as a writer. You keep everything inside until you put it out there, and then you're judged by the success of it, right? Which frequently that's measured by book sales, and your publisher is telling you if it's been successful or not. And then if it is like, and then add to that, okay, so it'd be one thing if this was like, I don't know, crime fiction, and successful gets you on like bestseller lists. But let's be honest, you know, it's a niche. It's a niche writing. Paranormal, cryptids, spooky weird creatures, strange facts. This is very narrow in the world of like the grand scheme of like all the genres of book writing. So I feel like although the Book of the Bizarre was one of the most successful books I've written, probably the one that's had the least sales is my most recent one. And I feel like that's the one I like the most and I feel is truest to me and what I believe and kind of what I'm, you know, the book that I wanted to write. And so as I'm working on next books and next projects, which are, of course, like a little bit all over the map because I've been trying new things, I, like anyone, run into, rejection and just, the whole idea that, am I even doing the right thing? And then I end up doing some, copywriting for some random company just to, pay the bills for the month because, anyone who thinks you're going to get rich as a paranormal author, I'll tell you, my royalty check wouldn't buy my ticket to Vegas. So there's all these other, you just kind of you've got to do a collection of things. And I think I thought in my head before I really dedicated myself to being a writer, I think I thought in my head, you worked, you got rejected a lot, sure. And then you just got this like, kind of like hit and you just got a bunch of money and that was it. Everything was great from there on out. Well, that might have been a narrative for someone like Stephen King, but that wasn't has yet to be my narrative. It's been a sort of a gradual thing. And actually what I've learned is that, to me, I measured the success when like someone comes up to me and actually has read my book and has enjoyed it. That's that whether they bought it, at a thrift store or took it from the library, to me, that's so there's monetary success and then there's creative success and creative fulfillment. And we'd like to be able to subsist more or less on our creativity if possible, which is why I'm such a supporter of art and artists and small businesses. But I also think like, are you going to be able to buy like a brand new car with, your fallout from your book about vampires? I mean, not me. I haven't, but I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, I think that I had a different idea of what it meant to be a successful writer. And, things have just sort of changed. So to me, what's successful is like, having like-minded people that actually care what you think and want to hear from you, like that's actually a measure of success. I mean, you guys keep inviting me back, so I guess there's something there.
It is something that you are a starving artist, and a lot of writers are. And the funny part about it is I know you call this a niche market, writing about horror and paranormal and monsters and cryptids and everything like that. Yet everybody out there loves these topics. They have I haven't found a person out there except maybe my mother who absolutely will not go into these subjects. And that's because they freak her out.
Yeah.
Okay. And but for everybody else out there, I've seen people make fun of this. What I do for a show. Really? You do a radio show on that? Yeah, man. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, you're serious? Yeah. Well, let me tell you a story. And they wanted to crack on you. But they didn't. They want to tell you a story instead. So it surprises me that the genre doesn't do better for you.
Well, so for example, that also can have to do with like your publisher and how much your publisher is willing to do for you and how many, like, I get a lot of traffic on my website, and I get a lot of, invites to shows and things, but that doesn't always translate into 1-for-1 book sales. So, that's something. And also the other thing about it is, like, people always want something new, and I actually haven't written anything new for a while. So partially because of a little bit, I wouldn't say a falling out with my publisher, but we didn't see eye to eye on a couple things. And so I'm a terrible marketer for myself, and I think that a lot of artists can probably relate to this. It's like, that's why you get an agent or a publicist or whatever, because most artists are not able to produce and kind of like promote at the same time. So some people are really good about it. I bore easily, so I don't stick with a lot of like social media things. I mean, I know I probably should be doing those things, but I just get bored with it, and it doesn't inspire me, so I move on. So I don't always have a business mind about something so creative, and that can be another challenge. But that's when, you, like I said, you write copywriting for some, greenhouse warehouse in Michigan, and then you're, you got a couple months covered there or whatever. So
Jim Goodall, who is an incredible friend and historian on aviation, says being an author is not a career for anyone wanting to be rich. I've authored 29 books, and it breaks down to about 2 cents an hour, not counting out of pocket experiences. And Sunny Fifth Wheel was good. I bet Sunny Fifth Wheel was good. I bet it was. but that's the truth of it. That's
2 cents an hour. I mean, 2 cents an hour, I guess. Like, but if you can eke out I guess I just think that that's something that it's just there's a certain amount of hustle in it that I don't know. There's just it's just sort of like, okay, so yes, I agree. A lot of people love, and horror aside, right? Like, fiction is a little bit of a different thing, but I agree that a lot of people love, they love ghost stories, and they love to talk about like cryptids and UFO and experiences, but they don't, or they like to read about them, and they don't necessarily always like to read about them from the believer's point of view. I think sometimes is like, so there's a little bit of a line there, it's not a pulp like Every Ghost in America collection, right? So there's a little bit of that. And then I mean, there's always timing. The best, actually the best book that, best selling book that I've had is the book on mermaids, which delights me. I mean, that's great. But unfortunately, I had a real crap royalty rate on that. So it delights me that book is out there and people read it. I don't make any money on it. And that's just something that I learned as, when you're an author, you kind of just take what's thrown at you at first, and you don't realize that it's a kind of not a great deal. And so you undervalue yourself because you're anxious to get something published. Yeah.
Get put in the door.
Yeah. So I've learned a lot, and as such, I've had kind of a lull in, well, I'm not a lull in writing at all, but a lull in what I've had published. But that's also because I think I have a specific set of criteria and standards that I didn't have before. So,
we got 4 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. What is your own personal freakiest paranormal encounter?
My own personal freakiest. So just, I would say that by and large, most of my personal paranormal encounters have not been like scary in a negative sense. There's definitely been things that have freaked me out on all ends of the spectrum. Lots of things where I've just not been able to explain it, and it kind of gets freakier like after the fact. But I'd say like one of the more really kind of scary things that happened to me when I was a teenager. And it's totally something that I would, caution anyone of any age against. But I was I was living in this mining town, and there was an old Victorian, and it was like this house where all these different like punk rockers, like as you kind of either left home or you were kind of like kicked out of your house, or maybe you were like just over, just of age or whatever. Different people would kind of live in this house, and then all the teenagers would kind of hang out there too. And so, but everyone felt like this house was haunted, and not in like a lot of weird energy there, and in particular coming from the basement. So of course, me being a brash, obnoxious, semi-gothic 16-year-old grabs a Ouija board and goes straight to the basement just to see, what would happen. And that's one of the only times that I'd ever had something really like disturbing happen with the Ouija board. And I still had used Ouija boards since, and we'll use them again. I really think it was the kind of like circumstances that it set up. But first I was doing it with this boyfriend of mine, and then he left and like went upstairs probably to get, a giant bottle of wine or something. And don't underage drink, kids. And I kept doing it. I kept doing the Ouija board, and I made contact with something pretty quickly. And it actually got to the point where I started feeling like really kind of like my body started feeling really hot and buzzy, like in a way that I hadn't ever experienced before. And the board felt hot, and then the whole thing kind of just like, I don't know how much of it was me just completely freaking out, but I felt like the planchette flew across the room. So I stood up, the board fell. It was a really creepy basement. I really had no business being in there. I'm completely convinced it was some kind of portal down there. And that was really an eye opener for me. It was like, what are you doing? Why are you putting yourself in? It was, this is an at-risk situation in a variety of ways, but in particular in a spiritual and sort of psychic way, especially because I think a lot of the people who were experimenting at the time didn't have much interest or belief, or didn't necessarily consider themselves sensitives. And I certainly was and have always been. And so it was something that really kind of changed my whole behavior from there on out.
Well, it is an entire shift the minute you have something happen.
Yeah.
That is strange or weird. And I think a lot of people suppress what's happened to them, in order to try and cover up, oh, that never happened. I never have anything weird happen.
Yeah.
Yet here we go. But nonetheless, Varla, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. And when we return with the lovely and talented Varla Ventura, we're going to get into some spooky creatures. Geese.
Geese.
Canadian geese flying north. No, that's scary enough, but we're going to get into gold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, and anything else that starts with a G when we return on Spaced Out Radio. VarlaVentura.net is her website. Find her books at any major bookstore. We'll be back right after this. All right, we're clear.
All right. That's a nice comment.
Which one?
I have your books on my nightstand. Between you and Dave, we have my bedtime stories covered.
There we go.
That's great.
We are the bedtime stories right there.
Ooh, there's another book idea, Dave.
Woohoo! By the way, congratulations to Joe Monk, who got himself a new puppy this morning, a baby girl Rottweiler.
Ooh, cute.
Yeah, her name is Dave. And
Is it really?
I wish.
Oh.
He's leaning on Lola, which I think is a
That's
perfect
cute.
name.
Yeah, very cute. Love Lola.
Yeah,
It's a lovely
yeah,
name.
yeah. I get to pick the last name though, and I'm thinking McGibbons or something like that. Lola.
Lola McGibbons.
There you go. There's the dog's name, Joe. Lola McGibbons.
She works down the market.
Mhm. She
Oh,
works down the
super cute.
market, Joe. She works down the market. But you missed a good time, and I'm going to continue to rub that in.
Did anyone win big?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Enzo in the chat room, I think he threw in like $20 into a $5 slot machine and played the max. And a couple hits later, he hit like $2,100.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Up
And
paid
then
for
he
his
went,
trip and then some.
yeah. And then he went, I mean, the guy was red hot. The guy was red hot on the slot machines the entire time.
That's pretty. Wait, someone said Enzo won 40K. Is that true? Did he really
No,
win that
that's
much?
not true.
No, that's not true.
He won $2,410 overall.
That's still amazing, right?
That's a fantastic weekend.
Yes, it sure is.
Yeah. And by the way, Granty Mercury, I will be mailing out your glasses tomorrow.
Oh, someone leave their glasses behind.
Yeah. Granty Mercury.
The SOR lost and found.
Yep.
Cute.
Yep. That's what happened. That's what happened. Granty Mercury. The show must go on. There we go.
Are you a gambler, Dave? Or should
Yes.
I ask the chat, is Dave a gambler? Because they'll tell me the truth.
Dave dabbles. He doesn't go hard. Dave dabbles.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't believe it was 2 inches of snow outside.
I can't. I heard you say that in the beginning. I was like, "What is happening?" Because I don't even have any snow, and I'm in Little Canada, basically. So it is cold, though. I took my my dog out for a walk just before the show. It was completely pitch dark, crazy dark, and yeah, freezing. Like it's in the 30s. So yeah, it's almost May.
I know.
Whatever.
Like these late snowfalls are killing my
discouraging
dogman season.
I was thinking, yeah, it's hard on the garden. I actually have a greenhouse in my office right now because I just got tired of having to wait to start. Actually, I'm trying to grow some mandrake, which is really hard to grow, and I have 3 different kinds. So I'll report back on that in a couple months. I do not live in a climate that is kind to many plants, especially something that, is like native to Mediterranean Europe or the British Isles.
Yeah. About a week ago, we had some friends come over for dinner. And I thought they brought us a tomato plant.
Oh.
It wasn't a tomato plant.
Something a little different. Something a little more fragrant, and
it
something
was,
you don't necessarily want to make into.
It was the lettuce of the hippies.
The lettuce, the hippie lettuce. Mm-hmm.
So I have now, apparently I am now.
You don't like that. I don't know
No.
why they would bring you that. That's not your style at all.
Not me. Not me.
Well.
Terrible. A big thank you, by the way, to Steven, Catfish, and Big Dog for the super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Thank you to everybody who's bought our swag lately at spacedoutradio.com. We really appreciate it. Make sure you get pictures for us that we can put online. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Varla Ventura, her website, varlaventura.net, where you can find all of her books, and at any major bookstore. Mermaids, monsters, goblins, boils, and ghouls. She has it all. She writes about it all. Varla, welcome back.
Love it all. Want it all tattooed on my body. Did you guys get SOR tattoos?
There was talk. Grant T. Mercury and I were talking about going to get some tattoos and matching tattoos, where, I would get the S, he would get the O, and his brother, Sexy Dan, who's honestly, a real sexy guy. Honestly, Grant's brother Dan, he's one of these guys that every man hates because he's got it all. He's got the looks, the perfect beard. He's tall. He's built like a big house, with muscles everywhere. And yeah, Sexy Dan. We ended up calling him Sexy Dan for the weekend. And he was going to get the R.
Uh-huh.
No, but we were going to get something. But we didn't do it. We could have.
You could have.
Should have.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those hopefully next year type of things.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I tend to be a encourager and rabble rouser, especially when it comes to spontaneous tattoos. So
I think next year.
Bring your tattoo money, or maybe bring Enzo, and he can win some tattoo money.
we're gonna give Enzo $100 each. We're gonna let him,
as an investment. Yes.
we're gonna let him, multiply that by 10, and then we're gonna go get some major ink in Vegas next year. That's just the way we got to do it.
Yeah, or minor ink. I mean, no.
Yeah. Well, either way, I need some major ink done.
It's just, it depends on how much time we have.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Look, okay, paranormal talk here.
Yeah. Stay focused.
You've been around the paranormal a long time. You've had your own experiences. You've talked to a lot of people who have, jumped around from haunted house to haunted buildings, haunted bars, haunted restaurants, haunted land. What kind of intrigues you the most?
Well, I do love a good abandoned asylum type of story. I think some paranormal memories are some of my earliest memories. And I certainly was born into, with my mom in particular, I was born into a paranormally inclusive environment, I guess. She is very psychic. She has had many experiences and had told me about things since I was a kid. And even going back to the generation before that, my grandparents, where I remember one night when an aunt passed away, and something had happened where there was a trailer that had been in a driveway and it had been pushed out into the street. And my mom was convinced that it was my aunt had done that because no one was answering this phone call and to say that she was in the hospital. And so, just like that, that's just sort of like the background that I come from. So I'm absolutely fascinated with haunted places and specifically buildings. I think like houses and hotels are, I love hotels in general. I'm just a hotel person. I just love hotels. I mean, I don't like gross hotels or anything, but I love, like, I just love, there's something about I know for a lot of people, they can't get over the idea that other people have been in the space. But to me, that is actually, especially with historic hotels, that's the whole appeal. I really love that. So haunted hotels are pretty up there for me. And also probably because I have had some pretty profound experiences myself in old historic hotels without even meaning to. Honestly, just not even really understanding the history of the place, but picking it out because it was old and pretty and the oldest place on the block or whatever, and then having more than one experience there. So I had that happen at I think it's actually called the St. Anthony Hotel in San Antonio. And this was like a number of years ago, before they've since, like, they were just starting on the Riverwalk, which is a huge attraction in San Antonio where you can walk along the river, and there's restaurants and patios all along there. And it's been a big revival that they've the city has invested a lot of money into. And the St. Anthony is like right in downtown, and there's actually a tattoo parlor around the corner, and then the Alamo's like not that far from there. And I stayed in this hotel, and I actually kind of picked it because, I mean, as a child who saw The Shining far too young, there's nothing like, this like gorgeous lobby that's reminiscent of the Overlook, right? The Overlook Hotel. And I had a couple of things happen in that hotel, including seeing something on the top floor that I kind of saw, like a woman like walk from one room across the hall into what I thought was just where the elevators were. But when I ran down there, there was that's not quite where they lined up, and there was no one there. And for me, that was significant because a lot of my paranormal experiences have been things like being woken up with like a tap on the forehead, having my hair kind of tugged, or having like a lot of physical things sitting on the bed, but not, and lots of audio things, but not as many actual visual sightings. And so that was one that always stands out to me, was this seeing this woman kind of clad in black sort of glide through the hallway on one of the top floors of the St. Anthony in San Antonio. So yeah, hotels are up there. And I love cemeteries. Although I'm surprised at how few ghosts I've ever seen in a cemetery. The amount of time that I have spent in cemeteries and the amount, I mean, like, I've literally spent a lot of time in cemeteries in my life. Like, I've found them to be places from childhood through teen years, through young adulthood I walk through a cemetery almost every day now. And actually only recently, the cemetery near me, I've been having recurring kind of paranormal vibes there. But a lot of the cemeteries I've been in have been just, real peaceful and not particularly haunted.
What do you like about a good ghost story? What does it have to include in a real one? Not something that's imaginary here.
Okay, so I think a good ghost story has to I like that. I think a good ghost story has to include, and always starts out with, something along the lines of, I really didn't believe until, or I don't usually talk, like some kind of preface, like there's a qualification that I think really draws you in. Because as soon as somebody says, I've never had anything like this happen to me before, or there was nothing unusual about that day, or like those, so a ghost story that sort of sets up with this like baseline of absolute normalcy is always the most effective, because it means that it was, to me, that signals something a little bit more authentic, right? Yeah, sure, you could just throw that line in, of course. But when it's somebody who is telling you something with great sincerity, they'll usually have some element of that in the story. It might be the first time because it's a significant thing that happened to them and it really stands out, but it's really kind of like their first paranormal experience. It might be just something that, they weren't looking for it necessarily, right? So I think that often, that kind of qualification to me can kind of draw me in, because I'm such a like greedy ghost person. Like I just want all the ghost things and I don't get them. You know how it goes. You go on an investigation, you're not going to get like that. Those shows that just show people like yelling for a ghost, cut to 9.5 hours later when they had like an empty room and a cameraman. And that's when you get the thing that actually happened. And it's just spliced together for our short term, video enjoyment or whatever. So you can't always find things when you're looking for them. And actually, I think that's another element of a good ghost story, is that you weren't necessarily looking for it. It came to you somewhat unexpectedly. I find those ghost stories the most compelling. And then the other, I love a good like ancestor story. One of my favorite stories is when, people find out that someone that they loved died because that person visited them, which I think is really powerful and beautiful. Like often it'll be like a grandparent or I've heard quite a few of those stories. Honestly, like if there's a sincerity to it and a person is telling me their authentic experience, and I've heard enough stories over the years that, after a while you can kind of weed through the things that people just want to be part of the group. And so they'll tell you things. Which I don't necessarily dismiss, but you put that in a different category, right? The things that are good ghost stories in terms of like a fear factor for me, it often has to do with the person who's telling it. So if I feel like that person is like a steady person that like I would expect to protect me in a zombie apocalypse and they're scared, I'll get scared. Like that's when I'm like, oh, you were freaked out? Uh-oh, okay, because this wasn't freaky until, you kind of told me that. Or if the person is really like a person that you respect and has a very, scientific approach to things but can't explain it. And then the other thing that really matters, I think, if you're really getting into it is, does the story change? Like, we don't all remember all the details all the time, but if it's a profound paranormal experience, the details don't generally change from telling to telling, right? So,
You know what? Family hauntings. There's a subject we haven't gone down the road.
yeah.
You know, I think many of us have experienced them. I didn't experience anything until my grandfather died in 1995. And my uncle and I kept on having the same dream where my grandfather's face would be in the clouds and then it would rush right up to like within inches and he would just be staring there.
Yikes.
And it was the weirdest thing. My grandfather haunted my baby girl at the time. Not
Oh,
haunted her, but I recall we were my ex-wife and I were out. My daughter was only about 4 or 5 months old at this time. And my grandfather fixed lawnmowers. He had a lawnmower shop in his garage. And as a kid, I always used to go out to his shop, and I was one of these kids where I loved being at my grandpa and grandma's. So every weekend, I had my parents drive me out there to hang out with my grandpa and grandma because I thought it was just the greatest. And my grandfather would fix lawnmowers until 11:30 at night. And then he would come in. He would, being a Ukrainian man, he would be a hard-boiled egg, so a few pieces of kubasa with some mustard and a glass of Pepsi. Okay. And that was the nightly snack. And as a kid, I loved this,
Oh, great.
but when he died, um, my daughter was about 4 or 5 months old, and I picked up my daughter, and she reeked of the smell of my grandfather's shop.
Mm.
And my ex-wife could not smell it. Yet to me, it was clear as day. And I remember I started actually tearing up because I hadn't smelled that smell
Hmm.
in more than a decade at this point. And I actually called my grandmother up and I'm like, Grandma, you're not going to believe what's going on here. And she's like, Well, what's that? I said, my daughter, she smells like Grandpa's shop. And my grandmother starts laughing. And
Mm.
she calls me David with a Ukrainian accent. David, you know. She goes, What do you expect? Your grandfather had 3 boys. He really wanted a girl.
Aw.
And this is his. So I'm the only grandchild on my dad's 2 brothers never had kids. Okay, so I'm the only grandchild, and my first child is a girl.
Mm.
So I had the first girl. So obviously favorite grandson because I'm the only grandchild. And then and then and then the great granddaughter comes. Well, my grandfather never met her, you know, because he was already deceased. So for me, my grandfather being around was freaky at times, but it was really cool at other times. But for some, it's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I think that's called like clairsentience when you smell the presence of someone. And I've had that happen. It's actually only happened. I've had it happen a couple times, possibly, but one time in particular, and it was the night that my friend's, a very good friend of mine, and I was very close with his mother, and was there when she died, and you know, we knew it was coming. And in any case, so she died, and several hours later we went back to another mutual friend's house and went, it's like, okay, it's midnight, we're all exhausted, we haven't slept for 3 days because we've been on this like vigil watch, whatever, so let's try and get some sleep. And that night, which was less than 24 hours later, I woke up and I was sleeping in the same room with him, her son. And I woke up and I wide awake suddenly at like 2 a.m. and completely smelled this scent that was like the smell of roses, but like wild roses, like those good wild roses, like not a perfume. It wasn't a perfume. It was like the scent of wild roses, and it just flooded the room, and then it disappeared. And there was just no explanation for it. And I looked over to see if he was awake, because I thought, well, maybe he is like, I don't know, like burning. And I didn't know what was, and he was completely out. And I just thought, okay, his mom just came by here, checked, made sure everything was okay, as she was like, kind of finishing her journey into the next whatever. And it was a really, like, I've never had something quite that strong. Like, there was no explanation for it. The window wasn't open. There were no roses blooming. There was no perfume in that room. There was nothing I could do that was could really kind of explain it away. And I had also at the same time this real sense of peace about it. Like, I knew what it was. And so if I wanted to sit there and question it, I probably could have dissected it and figured out, but I knew exactly that it was, my friend passing over and just kind of like making sure everything was okay. And so that's one part of the story. The next day, when I saw her daughter, who I am also friends with, she said the same thing happened to her in the night. She woke up and she smelled this really strong smell of roses that she couldn't explain, and it wasn't a perfume of hers, and it was just a very light, and then it went away. And she said that exact same thing happened to me. And we don't know if it was at the same time, but it was the same night. So I think that that's like, I think that we're expecting that we're going to see ghosts in this like visual way, but we don't always, right? Like these other ways they show themselves to us, through scent and through touch, and through, I've had audio things. I've heard quite a few things. But yeah, I mean, that can be pretty profound for sure. And actually one of my favorite stories, came to me years ago, and it was after I had written the very first book of the Bizarre, and I was on Coast to Coast, and someone wrote to me the next day, and I think he had actually called. Did he call in? I think he called in to Coast, and he was just, it was, I love the late night shows because you get a menagerie of people who like to stay up late and do weird things, and then you also get people who work late and are working like the night shift. And so this guy was like a night shift worker and just listened to Coast all the time. And I happened to be talking about a couple different paranormal experiences, and he called in and told this story about having this like olfactory like perfume thing happen after his mother had died, and that's how he knew his mother had died. Actually, it was, he kind of rushed home, and she had passed away, and he had been at work and had smelled her perfume. And that story really stuck with me, and has always, and I actually included it in the second book of the Beyond Bizarre, the second book of the Bizarre, because it just really stood out to me just how profound this experience was for this person, and the fact that he had kind of shared this intimate story with all of these people, because we had started a conversation like you and I have going here, where, he felt comfortable enough to call into a, national radio show and share that story with me and with all the listeners.
It is quite impressive when you have people out there who want to share those family stories. We got about a minute left here. I want to continue with this topic because I'm curious. You know what? Let's do this with our audience. We've never done this before.
Ooh.
If they have a story that they want to share with our audience, I will put the link in the YouTube chat room, and we'll bring them on.
Ooh.
We'll bring them on, but it
Get
has
your
to be
lipstick on, folks.
family stories, and you got to get to the point. Family stories when we return. What do you think, Varla? Should we try it?
Sure, let's do it.
Let's try it.
Let's do it.
Let us
Yeah,
be
bring them in.
rebellious on
We do what we
this.
want.
Hey, that's why we own the night around.
Yeah, exactly. What's the good of owning the night if you can't break the rules?
You know what? After Vegas, I fully agree with you. Fully agree with you.
That's how you own the night, actually.
Let's do it. We are going to take some questions from our audience here when we return on Spaced Out Radio for hour number 2 of Varla Ventura's Our Cryptid World. And once again, we never do it. We never do it. The last time we opened up the phone line, somebody actually rang on in, farted, and then hung up.
Please don't do that.
Let's be on our best behavior. There are women and children tuning in. VarlaVentura.net is her website. Find all of her books at any major bookstore or online. Spaced Out Radio continues with hour number 2 of Our Cryptid World with Varla Ventura right after this. All right, Varla.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So now, are you going to bring them on visually, or are you going to let them off the hook and let them put their?
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to take a bathroom break. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right. You can chat with the audience if you want.
All right. You know what would be fun is to do like a hidden pictures for everyone watching on the YouTube. Is to do a hidden picture thing, like a find and seek with Dave's studio, don't you think? You know, find the well, we can all find the gnome. There's always a gnome. I think there's like a skeleton doing yoga. There's a watermelon. I forget what that is. I think I've asked about that before. There's Marvin the Martian. You know, there's a lot of fun things that you could do with that. I do think people should call in. I think that's wonderful. I think if you're very, very camera shy, you could probably convince Dave to let you keep your camera off. But if you really wanted to tell the story, because I understand that sometimes it sucks to be on camera. It just does. You just get sick of it. But yeah, there you go. Just play a little hide and seek there. I was reading about something sort of interesting. I thought it was interesting. And I'd heard about this before, but it was something that came up. I went on a trip to Key West several years ago now. I guess it was probably 4 years ago. Got to see Robert the Doll and went on a great haunted tour. And I love that. I love that town. Anyway, one of the things that came up was haint blue, which is a specific color that you see actually now. When you look it up online, they say that it's specific to the Carolinas, Georgia, and North Florida. But people in Southern Florida, I mean, you can't get much more Southern Florida than the Florida Keys. We're also using this color. And basically, it's a shade of blue that was used to ward off ghosts. So that's pretty cool. So this wall behind me is not haint blue. This is actually called blue velvet. It's much more Vegas than haint blue. But for some reason, I've heard the word haint as a term for a spirit and a ghost, but I didn't know about this color until this ghost guide told me about it. And I thought that was pretty cool. And sometimes it's just the ceiling of the porch is painted this color. So yeah, it's a beautiful, I would say it's in the cerulean blue category there. It's definitely kind of a brightish, light, maybe like kind of robin's eggy kind of blue. So I don't know. I just am telling you guys that because I recently Googled that and I just thought you might want to know what's in my browser history. You actually don't want to know what's in my browser history, but that's one of the things I could talk about that's in my browser history.
Chris Moe, how you doing? TMI, good to see you. Kevin, nice to have you here. Lovely Laura, thanks for joining us. Who else has hopped in here late? I don't know.
We're talking about haint blue. Have you ever heard of that?
Hate blue?
Haint blue.
No.
Yeah, you live too far north, so it wouldn't surprise me if this hasn't ever come up. And I'd only heard of it when I went to Key West a few years ago. I went on a ghost tour and they explained. Now, a haint, right? You've probably heard of that as like another term for like a ghost or a spirit or a haunting, a hainting. But haint blue is a specific shade of blue that was traditionally in the American South and Southeast in particular was painted on porches to ward off evil spirits. And it's called haint blue. And it's like this particular shade. Sometimes it's just like the roof of the porch would be painted. Sometimes the whole house would be painted. And I didn't know about it. I just actually... had been on this tour in Key West and this woman talked about it. And then for some reason today, I think after you and I kind of were like, oh, well, we're talk to you later. And I was like, oh, I'm going to look up something. And somehow I stumbled upon Haint Blue. So I was just sharing that fascinating fact with your
Very nice.
your dedicated viewers. That actually would be great if you were describing if you were describing a creepy person or something and you could say their eyes were Haint Blue. And now you know what shade that is.
I'm going to get you to hold on right there. Thank you to Steven, Catfish, Big Dog, Obi, and Vaughn for the amazing super chats. And we're going to kick off hour number 2. I put the link in the chat room, so join us if you want.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Obmuticent. Obmuticent is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire, checking out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Varla Ventura. VarlaVentura.net is her website, and she comes on in once a month for Our Cryptid World, where we get into everything spooky, weird, and strange. She is the queen of the cryptids, and we're going to continue on with her tonight, and we're going to open it up to the audience, see if they have a spooky family ghost story that they would like to share with us. I don't know. We don't usually take callers, so I don't know how
what's going to happen. This could be very, very exciting.
Have you ever dealt with clients or friends who have had something spooky where they say, my mom came to me and she was looking all young and childish and she was saying all this weird stuff and I couldn't translate it. You ever heard anything like that?
I have heard people and have actually experienced myself someone coming for a visitation and they don't look the age that they were when they died. So they will look like a younger version of themselves. Often it's in like dreams. I think that a lot of people have visitations and dreams and they just chalk it up to being dreams. But I do think that dreams are a place that in the studying that I've done of sort of ancestral magic and connecting with ghosts and spirits in a meaningful way from the other side, not just having a paranormal experience, but like deliberately. That's one of the times that you can actually really make a meaningful connection by going into this like dream space. And so I think people do kind of dismiss it and they'll say, oh, well, like I just dreamed that. But I have had, I don't dream about just like every family member. I have specific 2 or 3 specific family members that come back to me in dreams. And one is actually my sister's late husband. And he visited me right after he died and gave me a warning for the family, which was, I woke up, I knew enough to write it down because you always forget your dreams. And then I was kind of afraid to even tell my sister what that warning was. But it was it was completely accurate, and it was something I didn't know about their intimate kind of, her immediate family, what was going on with the daughter and her husband at the time. So I've, when you think, oh, well, I've only had these visitations and dreams, just know that that can sometimes be the only time when our minds are open enough to actually receive these messages. And I do think that you can, especially with ancestors and loved ones and relatives, like, I think that's a way that we can have those experiences and messages. And like I said, for me, that has happened, and it's happened repeatedly with the same kind of two, and occasionally a third person. So it's my grandparents and my brother-in-law. And yeah, it's just
Oh, I hear you. I hear you large and long about that. When my nephew passed away,
yeah.
within the first few days, we actually had a lot of paranormal experiences with him.
Mm.
And it was pretty phenomenal. When I arrived down at my parents', I had to go and take my sisters, including his mom, the next day to the police station to pick up his belongings. And for people who don't know, my nephew died in 2018 of a fentanyl overdose at 29 years old. And, hey, it's tough. It happened. And you know what? I celebrate him twice a year, on his birthday and his death day. And I'm not trying to make a morbid story here, but the paranormal stories that happened with him were pretty damn incredible. And the first one was when I got to my parents. I was sleeping on my parents' couch, and they have a one-bedroom townhouse with a den that's converted into a bedroom, and I'm sleeping on the couch out in their living room. And my mother has one of these houses where no matter what, it's like 100 degrees in the house.
Yeah.
And it could be 100 degrees outside, and inside it's 100 as well. And it was about 4 a.m, and I was having trouble sleeping all night because I knew what I had to do the next day. Okay. And it was hotter than sin in the house. And when my nephew was living with my parents, when he was coming down and detoxing before he went into rehab for the final time, he used to, at around 4 a.m, get up and go to the kitchen and grab a glass of water. Well, my parents, the night before, we had a family dinner. And in our family, it's tradition where when somebody passes away, everybody comes over, everybody brings food, and then everybody has a big meal. And so that was at my parents'. And my parents had put this garbage bag full of empty pop cans. And dad always slides the garbage can, over top of a drawer, and then closes the drawer so the thing doesn't fall. Well, the pop can, it wasn't heavy. It was maybe a third full. And about 4 a.m, all of a sudden I hear crash, bang, pop cans going all over the floor. Well, the sink was right there for where my nephew used to go get a glass of water.
Hmm.
So I literally said to him, I said, "Hey, Stu," because I called him Stu. I said, "Hey, Stu, do you mind? I'm trying to sleep here." Right? And then everything went quiet. So I told my mom this the next day, and she had stated that a couple days previous, when we found out he had passed, that she thought that I raced down after this radio show with my son to come on over, because my mom always sleeps with her bedroom door closed. I have like a lot of older parents, my dad snores and my mom is a light sleeper. So dad sleeps in one room.
Separate chambers. Yes.
Yeah. And long story short, my mom said she woke up to a little boy saying, "Grandma, Grandma.
Oh.
And her bedroom door was open. And she went looking around thinking that it was my son and thinking that we had come over, which we hadn't.
Oh.
So then this continues. This is I don't think I've told the full story here. Okay, but I will tonight because I feel good
Yeah,
about it.
this is the time.
Then the day that we had to drive out to pick up his belongings, there was one thing my dad was praying for. And I opened up the bag and my nephew's black Nike hat was in there. It was the first thing I saw. And I just broke down, right? I broke right down because and I
Yeah.
immediately called my dad and I'm like, I got it. I got it. We got the hat. That's the only thing my dad wanted was that black hat. Like my parents no longer put an angel on their Christmas tree. They put the black hat.
Aw.
You know, and I know making it sound sentimental, but it's actually a really cool story. So from the police station, we drove up to his recovery house where he had taken a sabbatical to go get high. And we had to pick up his belongings. So we pick up the belongings and I said, "Where did he pass?" And the lady's like, "Well, the park is just over here and you got to go this way and this way and this way." I didn't understand. I knew the park. I just didn't know where it was. So we start in the direction which he says, and I cut through traffic to get to make a left on a busy road, and we come to this red light, and we're probably the 8th or 9th car in the line for the red light. And I just said, "Come on, Stu, talk to me here, man. Talk to me. Where are you taking me?" And I hear his voice, "Turn right at the lights, uncle." Okay. So I said to my sisters, I said, "He wants me to turn right." I turn right. There's a hockey rink there, of course. I recognize the hockey rink. And there's the park. Okay, great. And there happens to be a lady as we're going past the park slowly. There's a lady in a John Deere, side by side utility vehicle, with a shovel and garbage cans in the back. And I'm like, I'm gonna pull over. I'm gonna go. So I pull over. I run over to her and I said, "I'm sorry to bother you." I said, "But there was a body found here this past Thursday." And I said, "That was my nephew. My nephew's mom is in my truck right now. And we would like to know if you know anything about it." And she goes ghostly white. And she says to me, "I'm so glad you're here. I found him."
Oh.
And I said, "Oh." She goes, and she started to well up. She's like, "I tried to get him help. We didn't know how long. Another person called the paramedics and we tried to give him CPR and everything. But she goes, "I'm sorry. We couldn't bring him back." And I said, "That's okay." I said, "Thank you." I said, "Would you happen to know the spot where he passed?" And she goes, "Absolutely." She goes, "That's your vehicle over there?" I said, "Yeah." So she goes, "Hop in your vehicle, follow me." So she's on the grass, we're on the road, and we turn where she tells us to turn. She allows us into the employee parking lot and then takes us to this beautiful spot. Like my nephew couldn't have picked a more beautiful spot to fall asleep and never wake up again. He was underneath this beautiful big oak tree.
Mm.
Okay. And he fell asleep at a picnic table, just put his head down. That was it. Nothing gross, nothing nefarious outside of being high. And that was it. So we got to see the spot. And while we're there, my nephew and my sister loved hummingbirds. And my other sister and I just left his mom alone at the picnic table in the exact same spot. And as we all came together as family again, this hummingbird came down to about 2 feet above us.
Wow.
And it was just hanging out there. And all of a sudden, it was like, I gotta go. See you. It shot straight into the blue sky and disappeared.
Mm.
It didn't turn off or anything. It just shot straight into the blue sky. So that was kind of cool. Then, after his funeral and after everything that happened, and, you know, my sister calls me up and she knows I'm all into the woo and into some weird stuff. Like, go figure with this show. Then she calls me up crying one day and she's like, I can't feel him. I can't talk to him. I want to know he's here. I said to her, he's there right now. I said, because I just knew. I said, start talking to him. She's like, well, what do I say? I said, tell him everything. Laugh, cry, punch your bed, punch your pillow, do whatever you got to do. And so she's like, his name was Bryce. I called him Stu, but his name was Bryce. She's like, Bryce, are you here? And then all of a sudden I start hearing, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. What is happening? Oh my God, David, what is happening? Because she was putting away his toys from childhood.
Oh.
She was going to give to my son. And she had 2 big Tupperware, those big blue Tupperware containers sitting on her bed. And they both started rocking at the same time.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so she's crying. I'm crying at this point. And I said, talk to him. I said, hang out. I said, hang up on me and just talk to him. I said, he will be there as long as you want. Just talk to him. And so we hung up the phone. I didn't hear from my sister for at least another day because she was too busy. She literally talked through the night to him.
No.
So when it comes to family communicating, I am all for it. If we open up our ears and our eyes and our hearts to actually do that. And I'm not saying this to sound sad. Don't feel sorry for me. Because you know what? A lot of families out there don't get what we had.
That's true.
And we had awesome communication with him. Awesome communication with him. And, like, I hadn't heard from him in a while. I'd never, the old story about, people find coins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Varla, I never believed in that. Ever. Never believed in that. I'm really sorry for hijacking your show here.
No, this is your show. I'm just hanging out.
Well, I know, but I don't know why I'm spewing this, but let's just do it.
Go for it.
I never believed in the whole coins before. Then I started finding dimes all over the place. And if you know me well enough, you know that I hate carrying change. The idea of change building up in my pocket drives me absolutely bonkers. Bonkers! And yet here I was finding dimes all over the place. And it didn't happen often. It wasn't like a daily thing, but every few days I would find a dime. And like it would be to the point where I would put my wallet, and I have a money clip type wallet. I don't have a regular wallet that stores change or anything like that. But I would put everything in my wallet. At the end of the day, when I never carry cash because I use my bank card for everything. And I pull my stuff out of my pocket. I take my pants off to put them back on the hanger. And what falls out of my pocket? A dime. I mean, like, come on. And then my sister started finding feathers. And one day I hadn't heard, this was about 8, no, it was almost a year ago now. I hadn't heard from, it was around the anniversary of my nephew dying. I'm like, buddy, you haven't come around and see me anymore or lately. I said, Uncle Dave's missing you. I'd really like to see you. And I was saying this, talking to him to put the intention out there, in my bathroom while I'm getting ready for work. I take my path to my vehicle and there's a white feather lying right on the ground on my final brick before my walkway before I got to my vehicle door. It was like, I don't even know. Probably nothing. But to me, it's like, there we go. There's something I can do. There's something I can work with. I mean, we just got to open up our minds, don't we?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things I just want to add, and actually, I have a friend that follows feathers, and I believe that they're connected to her grandfather. So I think feathers are feathers, marbles, coins. Those are things that I've heard more than one person able to. I mean, I don't know if it's just that somehow those are objects that we're going to notice, and so that's why the dead can kind of place them. And also for me, it's playing cards, just as an aside.
Really?
Yeah, it's playing cards. My grandparents were major, like they're that generation. We would spend every summer there, and we would sit around and we would play cards. It was just, that kind of the generation that they were from was like the playing card generation.
You played a mean game at canasta, didn't you?
We never actually played canasta, but rummy. We played a lot of gin rummy. So yeah.
It was canasta in my household.
Yeah. I mean, I love cards, and I have frustrated many a friend for being ridiculously just like lucky with cards. And I find playing cards. But I want to say something. This is like not exactly like on the ancestral topic, but I want to just point something out, and I think it's an important thing, especially for your audience and all the people listening, because we've talked before about how, and you even said it when you were telling the story, that we all have those family members that aren't like as woo as us, right? That don't quite subscribe to it, or maybe only kind of dabble in it. But in a time of like crisis, when somebody really needed that connection, they turned to you. And I think that's really important, because I think that we, as like members of the card carrying members of with our tickets on the woo train, we can be kind of jokey and dismissive about it, right? And we just say like, okay, well, I believe these things, and people kind of make fun of me, but it's okay. It's okay if people make fun of it, or make light of it, because when it really matters, people will turn to us. They will turn to you. They will turn to who you are out there. They will turn to you, and they will ask for your help, and you will gladly give it. So
that's why we love you, Varla Ventura. You give her the signal, she wraps it up. We got her for another 30 minutes on Spaced Out Radio. We will continue right after this with Varla Ventura in our cryptid world. That was good times.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Sorry about hijacking there.
Oh, I think that was wonderful. It's great to hear that story. I think other thing that really stood out to me was the hummingbird like hummingbirds, they constantly have to eat, right? Because they are beating their wings so fast that they will just like completely die of like energy deficiency. So the fact that to have one actually hover away from a food source for any extended period of time where you can identify it is actually pretty rare. Like that's quite like to me that really stood out that it like was there in a really obvious way, but it wasn't on a flower or you know what I mean, or on a feeder or something like that. So that's another very significant part of that. It's a good story, Dave. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah, it is in my never finished book.
Yeah, it'll be finished one day.
One day.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
I just got too much shit going on right now.
It's hard to well, you know what, don't worry about finishing it, just worry about just give it 20 minutes of your time once a week.
I am waiting for one more experience.
Oh yeah. Is that Vegas by any chance?
No.
Is that Vegas 2023?
No, I am waiting for one more power experience.
Okay.
I think that's what it is. It's 2/3 done.
Tell you.
It's 2/3
done.
Done.
You're no slacker. You got more done than most.
Yeah, I am just waiting for that one more experience. I need one more. You're just missing one chapter. I'm missing one chapter.
You're chasing the dragon now. That's
It'll happen. It'll happen. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen this year. I have a feeling that it's gonna happen this year.
Did you guys make a trip out to Area 51, or was that this?
I did not. Tom Whitmore and Nicole Sackich did.
Oh yeah.
They went out to the little alien.
Oh, cute.
Got a bunch of swag. Got a bunch of swag.
Fun.
Kira says if we had gone out to Area 51, it would have happened. I think so. You're probably right there.
Mm.
And let's see here.
Well, you don't have to wait a whole year. You could do like a fall gathering. Just saying.
Yeah.
Funner to wait a year and like really build up the anticipation.
I have a lot of big plans. For next year. Like next year we want to actually do a 1-day conference.
Oh yeah.
And in the middle of that we're going to do a live 2-hour broadcast on YouTube.
Cool.
And from there we are going to have more speakers, a buffet dinner, and then some nighttime entertainment.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like what do you
well,
mean?
we're going to try get your mind out of the gutter, Varla Ventura. We're going to try and bring Bumblefoot in. I got to talk to him.
Oh, yeah.
But that's all going to depend on his tour schedule. So if Sons of Apollo is touring in, say, Asia or South America.
That wouldn't work.
No, but then I have my good friends Malcolm and Linda, along with Robert Perala, who are very much into the UFO world. And they are like lounge singers, but they are amazing. They are amazing. And Linda and Malcolm just have the most beautiful voices. So I might bring them in, and maybe we'll figure out some like audience games and all that kind of stuff. So that is kind of what we are aiming for.
Can I just throw Joe Diamond into that mix?
Well, Joe Diamond would be another good one.
Natural entertainer.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe we'll have a music
Super
and magic.
Vegas. Yeah.
Music and magic night. I mean, I want to say.
I'll turn the bingo spinner.
Yes. Thank you to Steven, Catfish, Big Dog, Obi Flett, Vaughn, and Chris Holm for the super chats. Really appreciate the love and support of SOR. And you got 30 minutes here, people, to jump on in and tell us your spooky stories. Pardon me. Here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you tuning us on in. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking up to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with Varla Ventura. VarlaVentura.net is her website where we talk all things spooky and weird, and we're talking more paranormal stuff with Varla tonight, because we love it when she's around here. Varla, welcome back.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And we have actually opened up the floor to our YouTube audience that if they want to join us and ask some questions or tell some stories of family hauntings, we would appreciate that. And of course, like always, we don't get any calls. Everybody always asks me, how come you never take callers? Well, when I do, no one shows up. It's like everybody else was cold. But that's okay. I'm okay with that. I think
there's a lot of pressure if you think you have to be on camera versus just calling in. I will say that as a person who doesn't love being on camera. So,
how can you not love being on camera? You have the dream teeth of every dentist.
Stop. Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's just whatever. Being on camera is just this other level of pressure, I think.
No. Well, let's bring in our good friend Dee Swiger here, who's going to come on in and tell us a story. Hi, Dee. How are you?
Hey. I've got a lot of family stories, but one of the coolest ones I'll tell you, okay?
I would love to hear it.
Okay, because I'm shamanic, so I have lots of stories that are ghostly. I'm a shamanic medium. But one of the coolest ones was I was not near my mother when she passed. She passed in a nursing home. And I hadn't been told, but I kept hearing these knocks in my apartment, but I didn't see anything and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I was really busy with other things and couldn't really focus. And a couple days later, my friend comes to tell me, because for some reason they couldn't get through on my phone, something was wrong with my phone, that my mother had died. And of course, it was not a shock, but it really wasn't any fun either. But when I had a quiet moment, I said, oh my gosh, that must have been the spirit knocks, right? So I said, Mom, if that was you, I want to hear from you. And she showed right up. And she said, I said, Mom, what was the knocks? I kept thinking my upstairs neighbor was dropping stuff on the floor in a weird pattern, because it'd be like, it sounded actually like a ping pong ball dropping 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. And I said, what was that? Was that you? And she goes, yeah. I said, why? She said, knock 3 times on the ceiling if you want.
No.
I'm not kidding. People think it's a joke, but that was my mom, okay? I mean, that was the way she was. That's how I knew it was really her. That was
I love that story. That is amazing.
Yeah.
No, And so I could have been really like, but instead I was laughing. I was like, oh my God. So, so I think that was her way of making it so that I wasn't going to be sad, but wasn't going to burst into tears or something. So I saw her standing beside her casket when I went to the viewing and talked to her a little bit after that. And it was interesting. But yeah, that's probably the top of the line family spirit haunting story that I can tell you right there.
Now, has she come back since, Dee?
Oh, yeah. She comes back to visit once in a while. She comes back to visit. A lot of my, I have pets come back to visit. Every pet I've ever had comes back to visit after they die to let me know they're all right. Most of my family, my grandmother, my aunt, my dad, they've all come to visit me at some point, and sometimes they come multiple times. And if you're open to it, but I had to really admit I was a medium because, you weren't really, I went to Sunday school and you didn't walk around saying you were a medium, because of the way I was raised. You just didn't say that. And a lot of people around being religious, they don't accept that. In some churches, as a matter of fact, they think it's demonic or something. And they'll want to be saving your soul and whatever. But it turns out I was always a medium. So an extra large medium. There you go.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling. Well, I appreciate you sharing. Varla, you hear somebody like Dee's story. I mean, it's not always a scary story about being freaked out. I mean, this is somebody who came to confirm what they knew and to show that there is another side, Varla.
Yeah, I really like also what you said, Dee, about how, that they, like your pets even come to let you know that they're all right, because that's also part of accepting that you're a medium and that you are the one that they're going to communicate with. They're letting you know because they know you would worry otherwise.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And I think that is another part of it that, like a lot of people can have maybe feelings or what might be considered a visitation, but to have that kind of ongoing dialogue is definitely a sign of mediumship. And also just, I think you hit it. You're medium, but you also have to be open to the fact that you are a medium and kind of admit to that. But absolutely, it does not. In fact, I think that for many of us, our ancestors or our loved ones, when they come back to say goodbye, it is to help us. And so even if it's somebody that you had a lot of conflict with or mixed experience with in living, we don't really know what happens when we die. But I think that, if we subscribe to anything like from, any belief system, there's always this idea of some kind of like passage and atonement. And I think that having that comfort of having that experience of somebody letting us know that they're actually okay is pretty remarkable. And I know that, even in the things that have happened to me, it changes. It's like, it's life affirming somehow to be visited by the dead, right? It just is. It's life affirming. Yeah.
Yes.
Very true.
But I died myself in an auto accident, and I saw the other side for a while, and there's a long story that goes with that, but I'm not going to go into it right now. But ever since then, it's been a lot clearer that I've been able to see that kind of thing. But I've always been able to see it, but I couldn't admit it. But I got to tell you, my pets always, at my family, my pets, everybody always says, I'm fine now. So if anybody is worrying, once they get to the other side, they're fine. Okay. Everybody tells me that I'm fine now. They're out of pain. They're usually with friends that have passed on. I saw my mom with one of her friends who had passed on, standing beside her casket. And like a beam of light, it looked like she was standing in a beam of light, and she looked young. Like when I was a kid, she was even wearing one of her dresses from like the 60s, and she looked about that age. And that was like one of her best. They usually show up in their best years. They go back to whatever their best years were. So it's kind of interesting. And since then, the one that really made me admit that I was a medium, I had to break down and admit I was a medium, was when I was actually in a bar and grill, and somebody came up to talk to me, and there was this guy that was was like trying to get their attention, but he looked 100% like a person. No, he wasn't disappearing or blinking out or anything, and he's like trying to get her attention. She's not paying attention. And I finally, in the conversation, I said, why don't you talk to this guy? He wants to talk to you. He seems like a nice guy. And she said, what guy? And I said, this guy right beside you. She says, what does he look like? And she got this weird look on her face. And I said, I described him. She gets this look. She goes, no. And I said, have you been getting something weird and small and brown that kind of looks like a brain? I was trying to tune it in. She goes, the walnuts. Walnuts? Yeah, I keep finding these walnuts all over the place. She said, my friend who passed used to always leave me a walnut as a calling card. But since he died, I thought I had gotten rid of them all, but I keep finding them all over the place. And I'm like, well, guess what? He's leaving them for you to let you know he's still around. She's like, that can't be. I'm an atheist. And a port. Those are called apports, by the way. And
Right.
I have apports. I have many apports. So if you get that, that's an apport. And I have quite a few. I have some from my mom. Some are pictures. I have some photographs that just showed up in the middle of the floor. Stuff like that. I have objects of all kinds and stuff. But it's real. Okay, so she comes back. I said, you know what? You're going to go home and you're going to find something at home that he left you. And she said, a few days later, she came back to me. She said, I found it sitting in the middle of the table. I said, what? Because I had kind of forgotten it. I found it. It was sitting right in the middle of the table. I cleaned the table before I left. And I said, what? And she says, it was there, a walnut.
Oh, wow. Dee, I got to let you go. We have a couple other callers coming on in. You were absolutely fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for
Bye-bye.
sharing that.
We love her. Dee Oceanswiger. She's always in our chat room each and every night. And let's go to Chris Holm here. Chris was in Vegas with us, and he is absolutely incredible. And Chris, welcome to Spaced Out Radio and Varla Ventura.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Great.
Excellent.
All right.
Hey.
I got like, I guess I got, when it comes to like family visitations, you mean like stuff in dreams like that? All right.
Could be.
Could be.
Could be.
All right. Well, I got two. So I'll give you the first one is my mother had passed a while ago, and me and her were very close, and she was, she was like into the spooky stuff, but she was reluctant to let me get too deep into it because it would affect my schoolwork when I was a little boy growing up. But anyway, so I'm having this dream, and it's been like maybe like a year or so since my mother had passed. And in the dream, I'm at a yoga party, at like a drunken yoga party. Everybody's drinking, everybody's having fun. And then in the background, I see my mother, and she's like, one of those little kiddie pools. She's like, she's pouring margarita mix into one of the kiddie pools. And she's just, in the background at the party, and she's not really doing much, but she's just there, So I just knew it was her because I felt her presence there.
Nice.
And that's sort of a weird thing. It's like, there wasn't a message. There wasn't anything saying. It's just, every now and then when I'm doing my goofiness or what have you, it's just that she's still around and she's still there, and things are all good. So that's as far as that one goes.
I got a question for you, Chris. How does that comfort you? And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I still, at 48 years old, going on 49 next month, I'm still blessed to have both of my parents alive.
Well, it's something that kind of gets under your skin a little bit here and there, but it's like anything else, you deal with it. For me, it was like a big old impact. It still hurts, but we've all sort of, moved on from it. It was like a few years ago. The family that's left, we still get together and we visit her. I mean, I'm lucky that her resting place is less than a few blocks away from where I live. So I can pretty much go into her remains whenever I want. And it's sort of as far as, just dealing with it. I mean, you just got to get through it. Luckily, we were close enough. We had a good relationship. There was, very little strife between us. And it was just something that was happening because she had had cancer for about like a year or so, or like for several years. She had gotten cancer. And sort of, we all knew that it was coming, and she made sure to get everything ready so that way, it could be an easy transition for us when it did happen.
Right. And how long ago since Mom passed?
I think she passed in like 2015.
Oh, wow. So it's been a while now.
Yep.
It still doesn't get easy, does it?
No, it doesn't. But, you get by. I mean, it's nothing that my mother left enough of an impression on me that, I just think to myself, how she would react, because I just know how she would react any given situation. It's like if there's anything where I need some advice, I stop and I think, well, what would Mom do? And I can always imagine what her answer would be like, or how she would answer. We had the opportunity to say goodbye and to say I love you, and I think that really helped a lot in dealing with everything, because this is something that we're all going to have to go through at some point or another.
Very true. Hey,
can I suggest that we recreate this dream in Vegas next year? I mean,
well,
I can pour margaritas into a kiddie pool.
Chris was in Vegas. Chris, tell everybody what they missed out at our Vegas party this past weekend.
I really can't say, because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yes.
You want to know, you got to go.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Chris, we're going to let you go. We got 5 minutes left. We got two calls. Let's get to Mr. Gray Owl here. And Mr. Gray Owl, look at that nice tight hair. How are you?
Yeah, good. Hang on a second. Okay, yeah, I just had to kill the other window. Hey, how you doing, everyone?
Good. We got a couple minutes for your story here.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'll try and wrap it up that quick. I live on this property I call the Owl's Nest, 100 acres. And it's like all zombie fence and everything. And a couple of years back, I was letting my buddy grow some weed back there. And then he was like detecting this weird shit going on. And I hadn't been really back there for a long time, because since my dogs passed away, may they run free. So we went back exploring, and we found this fucking.
Hey, no swearing.
Yeah. Swearing. We found this. I think he coined it, this creepy Blair Witch campsite. Like somebody had like constructed this like coven, and there was all these weird like braided things and like chops in the trees and stuff like this. We were like freaking out. We're like, oh my God. Like we happened upon it. It was night. And we're like, what the hell is this? This is right on my patch. You know what I mean? So needless to say, from that year or 2 years ago to now, like the nest is like I bought this anti-tango patrol unit. It's like this mini tank, you know what Argo is? and I blaze a perimeter all the way around the whole son of a gun. And I got the crossbow mounted on there, go with the chainsaw stuff. The first thing I did was burn the entire thing right to the ground. You know, like the Chinese would do at the wet market or whatever. Just burn the son of a bitch to the ground. But the thing that kind of sucked about that was I think yeah, just like every Woo story, I burned all the evidence, right? I'm sorry, the camera didn't work. No, but there still is evidence. I went out, I was collecting some of it the other day. Here's what. Okay, so whoever built this thing, and look, I'm not saying it was a witch, but my cousin who's like down in the States was saying, yeah, well, you know, the kids are getting into the Wiccan again and shit, you know, so and stuff. So, and it just kind of stuck. I mean, it could be I don't know, it could be a troll or just like some woodsman living rough or something, but a tango, nonetheless, hostile tango that needed to be neutralized immediately. So here's an artifact. So they would it's in this area with all these cedar trees, and they would strip off these strips of bark. Or maybe it's Bigfoot. They do the weaving, right?
Could be.
Strips of bark, and they made this is just the end of one of them. These are like proper like rope. Like you could hook this son of a bitch on it and you know tie up like a vessel or something. You know, like
a person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When we happened upon this, and my buddy, he smokes a lot of the grass or whatever. I don't. I'm on the drink, so my nerves are usually a little better than his. But he's a big guy. Like he throws weights around and stuff. He's stacked. And he was scared. This guy was scared, man. And so because we didn't know whether we were walking upon like an active situation or whatever. And so we're kind of coming up on this site, and then he's looking around. He looks over at a tree, and hanging in the tree is like a pickaxe. And so he like goes over, just like on a video game, shling, grabs that, and he's like, all right. I'm like, hey, you take point, man. He's feeling a lot better after that. But we never did encounter any beings whatsoever.
Well, I would think not after that. You're burning it to the ground and wielding a pickaxe.
There's a lot of plausible explanations too. Like there is down the way, there's like a high school, and a lot of kids like walk past to get into this small town that I live just outside of this town that was like settled in 1833 or whatever. And you know, I could see because that's why I put up the zombie fence, and I take farm fencing and I go too high. Like I do one row and then I do another row on top. So it'd be like crazy, like deer, you know, you see those places where they have like a deer farm, how high they got to put it. I put like higher than that. Mm-hmm. And, but anyways, I found vulnerabilities where it looked like kids had been, you know, they walk along and then they just kind of hop the fence. You know, you smoke a doob or something and then carry on.
I got to wrap this up, Mr. Gray Owl.
Okay, yeah.
We are about to head commercial.
Amazing.
That is freaky. That is freaky. Varla Ventura, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. You are a blast. That was fun. Varla Ventura.
That was fun.
We'll do it again next time. How about that?
Sounds fun. Yeah, we'll plan ahead.
Our Cryptid World with Varla Ventura will happen again next month. Sorry to Grant Mercury that we couldn't bring him on, but we'll bring him on here momentarily. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Big Bad Grant. Oh, I hate it. I hate it. He had this beautiful mustache in Vegas that made him look like Freddie Mercury. I hate it.
Oh,
I hate
Give
it.
it 3 weeks. I'll bring it back for you, my man. I'm still trying to get my voice back.
Gray Owl, thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
that was some seriously great storytelling there. Loved it.
right on. Right on. How you doing, Grant? You can tell your story now. I'll be right back.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
Yep, it's just gonna be you and me.
All right. Now I'm going to tell it to you. So I own a carpet cleaning business down here in Southern Oregon. And not too long back, about a couple of weeks ago, I showed up at a house. It was a client's house. And I had thought the lady that was there that met me there and opened the door was moving. And everything was out of the house. There was nothing in it. I had probably about a 2-hour job to be there. While I'm working in the house, the lady that was waiting on me to finish was sitting out in the garage going through things. And I started going through the master bedroom, and I got the little flickers. You know, every now and then I get the flicker on each side, and I had to look and, okay, who is this? What's going on? And get to the hallway, get to another bedroom, and I get a different type of flicker, like a little more darker type of flicker. And I got out of, doing my job. Just, I forget about things like that. I get out to the living room, and there's a sunroom that's out there, and it's all carpeted, and I'm out there cleaning it and everything else. Excuse me. Still missing the voice. And I started getting like this that light flicker that was in the master bedroom. And I was like, okay, so I know what's going on now. I can see what's going on. By the time I was done, I talked to the lady. I showed her the job that I'd done, which is what I do with every client, every customer I have. I don't normally talk about any kind of experiences or experiencers. And I just don't normally do that in my profession. In this particular case, I had to ask. And I told the lady, do you own this house, or do your parents own this house? She goes, oh, it was my mom's house. And I said, okay. And your dad's passed too, isn't he? And she said, yes. I said, did by chance they live in separate rooms? Like they slept in separate rooms? And she said, yes. I said, your mom liked the living room the best? Yes. I said, okay, well, they're still here. And they're showing themselves to me. And I don't know why, but, I can't hear them. I can't get any kind of, nothing mental's coming through. They're just there. That's all I seen. And that lady, I asked her, the way I started the conversation was do you have any experiences in this house? And she kind of stopped and looked at me and said, yeah, everybody in the family. So when you guys are talking about family experiences, besides my own, I have way too many of them, but it was one of the rare times I got to actually experience somebody else's family. And the fact I knew what room that each of them slept in, it was funny because her mom had gotten the master bedroom and the father got in one of the spare littler rooms. And she was telling me everything. And I said, well, I already knew that your mom was in the master because she also loves the living room. And she goes, yeah, my dad loves the den. And I said, well, the den's all tile. I didn't get to clean that. So
yeah, so I didn't go in that room.
Yeah.
So was her reaction positive then? It was because I understand what you mean. Like sometimes you don't want to bring that up because you just don't know. Is this person just going to be like, oh, I'm going to leave you a bad review now because you were a weirdo, right?
Well, I usually leave a pretty good impression with most anybody. I'm really quite friendly, and I'm jovial. I joke around, but when it gets to that type of talk, I usually have to wait a while before I fill it out. And this whole time she was out in the garage, so I didn't get that much interaction with her previously. You send me down to Vegas, just send me down to Vegas and just strap a video camera and see what happens. I will talk to everybody.
The GoPro on your hat. Just
It's probably not a good idea, but anyways, no, they like she actually took it really well, and in fact, she was so, I don't know, it's almost like I validated something for her.
Well, it's interesting too because it kind of goes back to the thing that we were sort of briefly talking about earlier, just like sometimes whether you think people are going to believe you or not, you just kind of have to just own it and be that conduit because even like Dee came on and said how she just was describing this person who was standing next to this woman that this woman couldn't see. It's like sometimes you just kind of have to like just be that messenger. And I wonder if that woman, it gave her an opportunity to say goodbye to them and let them go from that house. If she was selling it,
Yeah, and that might have been a good thing. Or, it might even have changed her mind. Is it really worth selling this house when it was it was literally in their family for decades.
Yeah.
That house, they've lived in, her parents were married for 52 years or 50 something years. And that was their first home and their last. They lived there forever. So for me to see them in there, it wasn't really that big of a deal for me, but
for her,
it was huge for her. And
On
she told me
on that note, guys, I got to let you run here because I got to get going here in 20 seconds. Varla, much love. Grant,
bye.
I'll get you, okay?
Nice chatting.
All
See
right.
you later, Dave. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye. Love them. Love them. Here we go, everyone, with the final hour here.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us on in. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Odyssey Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Obmuticent. Obmuticent is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire, checking out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time once again where we head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller has another spooky story for us.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. I worked at a gas station in my small North Carolina town, 10 miles from Charlotte. I was a 39-year-old wife and mother of 3 daughters. I was a stay-at-home mom, and my daughters were all in school when my family needed a little extra income. The area was predominantly safe. My hours were 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Of course, my duties were being a cashier, stocking products, cleaning, doing nightly audits, and reading every Dean Koontz novel I could get my hands on. All of this by myself, I should add. The company didn't see a need to have a second person on this shift because it was very slow, but very hectic on the weekends. I handled this job like a pro. I loved seeing my regulars at night and the morning workers getting their coffee and heading to work. I was at this gas station in my little town for about a year. We'll call it a convenience store. I did, of course, have the run-of-the-mill meth heads who liked their sweets. The homeless are looking for free cigs or somewhere to charge their phone. I also had the occasional local police officer that would come in around 12 to 1 a.m. for free coffee and complain about their shift. On this night, I read Dean Koontz' Intensity. I put the bookmark in because I felt like moving around. I went around the counter to the 5-hour energy shots and began to organize and stock. I heard the bell above the door open like I had a million times before. I had so many regulars ranging from my pizza delivery guys to men who just kinda came in. I was setting the case of 5-hour energy shots down to help this customer when I felt something cold and hard against my right shoulder. It was a blade. My first instinct was that this was a cruel prank from a regular. I turned around to say, "Hey," when I was met with the gun pointing at my forehead. It was someone I couldn't quite make out. He had a scarf over his face. I immediately put my hands up in shock. I saw 3 more guys in different colored bandanas with no guns but looking nervous and demanding me to give them all of the money. I walked around the counter with this guy holding his gun to my head and telling me to hurry up and open the register. I said with my hands still in the air, shaking, "Yes, yes, of course, here." I opened the register for him, and the 4 guys descended on this register, getting all the cash in it. Suddenly, the gunman looked at me and said, "This register too." A second register that had a bare minimum for the first shift. I put in my code and opened that register as well. They cleaned that till too. They saw the safe underneath the first register, and again the gunman pointed his gun at my temple and demanded I open the safe. I said in a shaky voice that safe was on a timer. Suppose you press one button, whether for the $10 bills or a roll of quarters, it won't dispense again for another 2 whole minutes. These guys were all on this safe pressing buttons, while in the meantime I'm praying out loud for God to come spare me because I have a husband and children that need me. I kept frantically saying this prayer, and the guys were frustrated that the safe was not giving them what they wanted. I heard one of the guys saying, "Shut that girl up." Another said, "Just shoot her already. We have what we need now." At that statement, I could feel like I was about to lose my bladder and pee on myself. Even though I was scared out of my mind, I was also mad that this would possibly be where I ended. I held that pee in and watched as they started to steal as many cigarettes, wraps, and Black and Milds as possible. One of the guys yelled, "We've been here too long, let's go." 3 went sprinting to the door while one is in front of me while I was shaking with clenched hands praying. I looked up, and his scarf fell. I thought this was it, but he smiled at me and joined his friends. At the same time, a woman came in to buy a soda. They yelled at her and pointed the gun at her to give him their purse. I thought for sure they would get aggressive. Instead, they were worried about being there too long. They ran out of the door and scattered through the parking lot. I looked at the lady, then the glass door, and could see her partner's truck outside. I told her to get to the car while I called the police. I locked the door as soon as she was in the car. I picked up the store's landline and dialed 911. I ran to the stockroom and locked that door as well. I told the 911 operator all the details she needed, and after a couple of minutes, she said it was safe to go out front and open the doors for the officers. I did just that. I unlocked the door and immediately removed my name tag and threw it into the trash. I felt like this was finally over, and I was quitting.
And on that note, we say thank you to Mr. Swamp Dweller for another spooky story as he takes us on a journey throughout the night on Legendary Stories from Swamp Dweller Reads on YouTube. Make sure you go hit subscribe on his channel. He's up to 262,000 subscribers right now. I think we have a little bit of a piece of that because we play him here every night. And we love him around here. But now it's time to move on. The fedora-wearing John Hudson and his Unbiased UFO Report. And we say hello to the fedora-wearing John Hudson for coming on in and hanging on out with us tonight. John, we missed you in Las Vegas, my man.
Yes. It was actually really hard for me not to be there. I couldn't even look at the pictures because it was going to bum me out so much.
I know, but just know that we were thinking about you and your mullet and the fedora there. You know, that's all that matters.
No. It actually the whole thing not being able to go actually like really caused me a bunch of like sadness all weekend. So I'm actually having a lot of trouble recovering from it, but I'm hanging in there.
Well, you know what? The good part about it is, buddy, we're going to do it all again next year, and you're going to be there, and everybody from the SOR team is going to be there next year. That's the way we're playing. Make it happen. Yes. All right. Well, it hasn't been a loud week in UFOs, but there is some UFO news that is out there. Why don't we start off with the fact that tomorrow night on the show, the former head of ATIP, Luis Elizondo, will be with us for the first 90 minutes of the show. And, you know, I'm gonna go at him about the whole experiencer process, man. I really am. I'm very, very curious to see why that angle is now being played out.
Well, may the force be with you.
You don't like that idea?
Well, I can't help but try to put myself into his shoes, and if I was in his position, that would be probably the last one of the things I'd want to like tell the public because of the possible complications it would cause. And so I'm just thinking that the only reason why he's mentioned it at all is because of the amount of prodding, poking, and bugging and harassing that he's gotten from everyone, that he's leaked a little bit of it out just because he feels he has to throw people a bone, but he truly actually does not want to talk about it, and at a very personal level does not want to talk about it. And so I'm just very concerned about like how that's going to play out. All I'm saying is may the force be with you.
Well, you know what? We're going to test him on out. We're going to test him on out. We're going to see how it goes. We are going to push the envelope over into his side. You know, maybe throw him a little bit of woo in that envelope and say, "Hey, man, what do you got for us? What's going on here?" You know,
Yeah,
I think because he is wrapping up interviews very, very soon regarding the entire phenomena, and this may be, you know, one of the last times we get him on the show for a long, long time.
Well, and the thing is that he responds very, very well to very clever questions. And while I haven't gone into this because I have a lot of skills in this and I don't want to, like, you know, make anyone like, you know, but there's a lot of ways you can go about manipulating people up with this kind of stuff. So it's kind of funny how it works out.
Well, you know what I'm going to see? I sent him and his wife some Spaced Out Radio swag a couple weeks ago. I'm curious to see if he'll wear one of our shirts tomorrow night on the show. I'm curious. You know?
Well, I mean, I don't see why not. I think he would. And the thing is, like I said, I think he responds incredibly well. He's very much like me. He adores well thought out, well constructed questions. And so, you know, like I'm trying to get into that. Like asking something like, so does anyone who's ever been employed by the U.S. government know what something from Offworld tastes like? Right? You ask them these kind of, or you ask them these kind of very general questions that are clever enough that they tie down to specific data points that would get admitted to if you admitted, you know what I'm saying? Those he tends to respond really well to, and so I think that you do have the potential of getting a lot out of him, because if he's excited about the questions, he's a lot more willing to share information.
Well, I'm hoping that the swag buttered him up a little bit. You know, I really am. I'm hoping. But
you know, Dave, as a quick side note, you know, whenever anyone from the DoD, Intel, anyone would come visit me at that company I was at, and we would meet them in our big boardroom, we would actually have to hold out little trays of money, because basically you are not allowed to pay them anything whatsoever for anything they do, and basically it creates an interesting situation. So, like, I mean, you can't even buy them lunch. Like, you're not allowed to buy them anything at all under any sort of. So, like, you cater them lunch, they all have to actually pay you for that lunch. That's how fanatical it is. It's really crazy.
Wow. So, what do you think of Elon taking over Twitter?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I mean, it's a lovely catalyst. I don't really know. In my personal experience and things like this, what we typically get is like 2 or 3 home runs, and then the rest of it pretty much goes the way an actuary would plan it, you know? So I think there's a good chance that we'll get end-to-end encryption on direct messaging. I think there's a good chance that he'll make that happen. I think there's a good chance we'll get an edit button, and I think the most important thing to me, and this makes it all worth it to me, is opening up the algorithm. And if we can actually get a look at its decision-making process, if we just get those three things out of it, then it's worth it. But the thing people have to realize is that Elon didn't just like write a check for this. He went out and raised the money to do this from banks. Those banks expect a return on their investment. So if anyone thinks that this isn't for profit, I mean, come on. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves here, right? The profit may not be what's driving it, but profit is what's supporting it. Let's put it in those terms.
You know what? I'm all for free speech and everything like that. I don't like the way Twitter has been bottlenecked and brought down, especially if you lean toward, and I'm calling this down the middle, but if you lean to more than one side of the political side than the other, then it seems like, there is some stifling of posts and information. I don't like seeing that. But I can tell you this, I realize for some, freedom of speech is a very sensitive topic. And for everything that's good about it, there is things that are bad about it. But I really do hope that on some topics that there is still some strength in there, especially when it comes to topics like terrorism, topics of hurting children, anything like that. I really hope that there is some sort of reporting filter on topics like that.
Well, and the one thing I will add is that there does need to be had a very, very serious discussion about how we are going to actually handle internet companies that become so successful that they then become naturally grown utilities. Okay. And we've been struggling with this with broadband for years. It's still a complete disaster. We have to figure this out, because I can tell you that this is my world, right? I've done multiple startups. I grew up in the Bay Area. This is all about startup world, right? And the way this plays out isn't what people think. I mean, it's hard. It's really
well, what
hard.
do you mean by that? Give me some information.
Well, I mean, basically, wait, hold on. I maybe think of a bad memory I had in the past. What was the original question? Just so I make sure I address it properly.
In regards to, I hope that they do, at least, there are topics that do need to be a little open or a little bit closed, whether it's, we don't need, another ISIS or terrorist group like that going on Twitter.
Yes. So what I was going to say is it when this is not a freedom of speech topic. This isn't a freedom of speech discussion at all. Twitter's private, right? It doesn't even matter if it has shareholders. It is a private. It is like owning a restaurant. It's even worse than that from a legal point of view. When you are running an internet service that is global to the world, there are a lot of protections in place for you, right? For very, very, very good reason, right? Because you're in a very dangerous position. There were several times where there was legislation on tip where if it had passed one way or the other, several of us would have just shut down because of the liability involved, right? And so the thing is that people have to really ask, do we really want Twitter to be a free speech tool? Because if we do, it cannot be run by a public company anymore. It needs to become a public utility of some, and maybe it's some hybrid. I'm not saying it has to be a utility like we've seen before, but the thing is that you can't have it's a very broken system to have something and call it free speech that is being run on servers and cables and bandwidth and work of people that are getting paid by a for-profit company.
Well, I understand that, and I can appreciate that. However, it can't be any worse than what we had seen already. I've seen too much, as a journalist, I'm not saying it's happened to me personally, but I've seen too many posts that have been taken down for no reason.
Oh yes, no. And the thing is that look, the real problem with a lot of this is not necessarily that anything's being taken down. Because there are some things that should be taken down. The problem is that we don't know what the rules are. And it's totally haphazard. And when you get tagged, it's like, I mean, half people are surprised when they get. You should never be surprised, right? If you're putting something on offensive, you should be making the calculated decision. I'm going to do this because it's worth the message for me. It shouldn't be I think this is going to be a fine thing, and then suddenly you get slapped with some, condition. That shows that you're not actually educating people on what your policies are. Like, that is so freaking broken. It's ridiculous. So I mean, a lot of it is yeah, I agree. I think so much of it is overhanded, but I think some of it, I think a lot of it could have been redirected in ways, because you did want, like you said, you did want things like ISIS messaging being suppressed. You do want things like threats of terrorism being suppressed. So I mean, there are reasonable things that you want to suppress, and it's just, but if you're not doing the suppression in an incredibly transparent way, you're doomed. I don't think there's any other way to do it without transparency.
Well, let's see how it goes. We're in for some interesting times. That is for sure. All right, let's talk some UFOs here, Johnny boy, as we have the Alien Endgame. What's happening here?
I don't like this story at all. Unfortunately, someone I do respect a little bit sent it to me, so I have to give it some credibility. But what this appears to be is a special streaming event that will be held on Friday, May 20th. And what Discovery Plus is claiming is that they will be showing first-person accounts and exclusive new video examining the extraterrestrial threat to our planet in a new streaming special on Discovery Plus on Friday, May 20th. And they're calling it Alien Endgame. And if I've ever seen a more blatant example of jumping the shark, I'm not sure I have. I mean, for anyone to be calling anything Endgame at this point is, I mean, it's just like, I hate it when people force me to be judgmental, but like, this is really hard. I mean, that's like, how could you possibly say that? It's insane. But I mean, it will be something worth watching and interesting, and feel free to consume it how you wish. And if anything good comes out of it, obviously, like, it's something we want to focus on. If it actually is really, really good content, then obviously, like, my whole opinion will change. But based on perceptions of previous attempts and so forth, I doubt I'll be watching that live. I'll put it that way.
Just not a fan of aliens. See, you love this whole techie stuff. You don't like the woo enough. You need to accept
it's actually it's really funny, because I would rather watch a documentary on the skull experiments than watch this, right? Because to me, that has more actionable data in it.
So you don't believe or buy into the whole alien aspect of where ufology is going right now?
Oh, no, actually, this has zero to do with my opinions about what may be going on in the real world. This has everything to do with the marketing and very immature way that Discovery handled the advertising for this content. That's what I find.
Yeah, but the big corporations like that, they have no clue. The people who are doing the editing, the people who are doing everything like that, as we got about 20 seconds left, have no clue of what
I disagree from the point of view of, we all know what people fear, and you don't see people joking about nukes, right? You don't see people being flabbergasted. You don't see people being exuberant about really scary things, right? Most of the press has some sense of that. This person.
Well, let's continue this talk when we return with the fedora wearing John Hudson and the Unbiased UFO Report. We'll continue with this. We'll get to more when we return. I'm looking forward to it. Stick around. All right, we're clear.
It's like a Hollywood movie. Is Nick Pope hosting it?
Oh my God. Oh, I hope not.
Oh, they got they got one physicist, so they got their token physicist. That's good.
Look at you, just horrible right
That stuff that leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. It really does. To me, this is the epitome of the really dark side of this whole topic is this. It's going to be this. It's going to be toys, and it's going to be that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that's going to be really challenging to deal with.
I don't know, sweet Johnny B.
Trading cards and abduction insurance, and oh my goodness, it's going to get so interesting.
Well, of course it is. That's the whole point. That's the whole point, dude.
You are absolutely right, Nicole. Nick Pope is absolutely harmless. Yes.
Nick, our good friend Nick Pope, he hasn't said anything of quality or substance in at least 10 years.
Yes. And he's also the clueless one that had the poster taken from his wall that didn't even have a high enough clearance to understand that it was a press D on an American system. And he ran around telling everyone it was a UFO, and then went, "Ooh, they took my poster. See how scary the UFO was?" And it was just because he was too low level to find out what it really was. So sad.
That's awesome.
That's
just awesome.
And he still tells people that was the cat. What is it? The cat. What is it? There's some name for the UFO sighting, and he tells people, and he goes, and the poster mysteriously disappeared. Ooh, yeah, because they couldn't tell you they took it because you didn't even have a high enough clearance for them to tell you why they were taking it. I mean, do you realize how low you have to? It's just sad.
You imagine if Nick Pope and Joe Murgia actually knocked heads.
No.
If they knocked heads,
they'd be linked forever.
They both have that Velcro hair. They would be linked forever.
Yeah,
they would be like Siamese twins of the UFO world.
That'd be sad. I'd miss Joe.
Well, not me. I like Joe, but I wouldn't miss him. Wouldn't miss him. I'd laugh at him, but I wouldn't miss him. Alien Critter. Nick Pope worked for the MOD. He says something is going on. The end. That's exactly his interview. Oh, you forgot, though, Alien Critter, that he has to quote verbatim Lou Elizondo or Chris Mellon. And then he goes, I worked at the MOD. The end.
And here's the thing. Look, okay, I can't say this for sure because I haven't met him, okay? But I believe that I've worked with people like Nick Pope before. And in my experience, these people are actually better at deluding themselves than they are the people around them. And there's actually a very strong possibility that Nick Pope himself actually believes that he was the senior most person at the MOD looking at UFOs. And I think it's very possible he really believes that. I really do. And he wouldn't know any different because he didn't have a high enough clearance to find out that there was a whole nother unit above him who took his poster.
That's all I'm going to say is,
And I mean, in all honesty, it's probably for the better because that plane is so damn scary. Like that is like all my life, every weapon I've ever seen, I've been so giddy over the engineering of it that I really have not thought about the ramifications. That is the first plane that I've ever seen specs on where I've been like, why did you build that? I mean, that is a horrifying plane.
All right, we got like 18 seconds. Thank you to Liliopatra, Chris, Vaughn, Obi, Big Dog, Catfish, and Steven for the super chats tonight. We're going to continue on with it right after this.
Oh, thank you. That's kind of kind of you.
We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with a fedora-wearing John Hudson and the Unbiased UFO Report. And John, you want to get into something regarding on Reddit, UFOs dropping metal? Oh, hold on here, buddy. Hold on. There we go.
Here we go. Yeah. So this is the fun story, because for forever we've been getting all these reports of this slag on the ground, right? And it's been this huge debate because it's like, well, what's going on? It's like, I mean, do UFOs do they sweat? Do they what's going on here? Like, do they get sick? Why? And then people are like, oh, they're gifts. It's like, I'm sorry, gifts usually come maybe not wrapped, but I mean, this looks like waste. I mean, this does not look like nice stuff, And it's like, but how's this work? Well, there have been some people that have hypothesized, well, what if there is an actual process, a natural side effect of their propulsion or their enclosure, right? That essentially causes the slag to be released as a natural effect of that process. And so there's been people looking at, what sort of processes can we create that would result in that kind of stuff being presented. So here we get a video that was posted on Reddit that claims to show an A10 basically interacting with some large glowing orbs that appear to shoot off from them pieces of them, like little pieces of them. Now, what's interesting is that I didn't get to watch the video because it's all been pulled. You can't see it now. It's all been removed. And so I don't know if it was pulled because there was something real going on, or if it was pulled because it was found to be illegitimate. So I just discovered it was pulled just like 15 minutes before I came on. So I apologize I wasn't able to go into it further. However, to me, it's still a really interesting story because I think it kind of, okay, I don't honestly think it was hand created by someone, but even if it was hand created by someone, we now actually have a visual representation of what it would look like for one of these devices to just kick off slag. And I got to be honest with you, even now, like describing it, that's not going to look right to me, but but it does give us an analogous example of what it might look like that other people can look for. And so, my guess is that there was something else, because Reddit's usually pretty picky about like certain things. And so my guess is that it got tagged for a legitimate reason and it'll be back. But I do think it's just very funny that this cool little video got posted and then boom, I go to dig more into it. And it's like, oh, this post has been pulled, nothing to see here, move along. This is kind of funny. But I love the idea that there could be an actual process that actually produces this slag, because that makes a hell of a lot more sense than anything else I've heard.
The big thing is we have found this slag at different locations all over. It was found at Roswell, San Augustine's, Falcon Lake, many other places where this slag has been seen and found. Do we know if there are any public tests that have been done on any of this slag coming off UFOs?
Public. There's something tickling my head. I wanted to say that there might have been one on one sample, but I don't remember anything conclusive coming out of it. My understanding was that some of the parts that that TTSA was looking, that at least one of the samples TTSA was looking at was a slag sample. And so I don't know what happened to that, but my understanding is that the slag itself has been relatively unremarkable. In that it doesn't have, like, from what I've understood, it hasn't had the same sort of structural elements that we've seen with like the layered magnesium and bismuth.
Okay, so the slag that is coming in, we do know what about it? That it is a metallic source of some kind.
Yeah, it's I don't remember off the top of my head, and I do apologize because I should have checked. But if anyone's like done like a proper like Cheryl Costa kind of analysis of like like all the different metals that have been found in what ratios and where that comes up. But it's from what I've read, it is usually metals that have been found on Earth. It just, but like slag, not good stuff, like the kind of stuff you get from like a molten metal factory.
So weird.
It is.
So
it's super weird. But if you have a liquid metal vehicle that can modify its shape, therefore it is not naturally rigid. It is rigid by choice. It is liquid by low state. And therefore, if a piece of it got broken off, like if a piece of it got knocked off for any reason and it lost connection with the ship, it essentially would lose all of its consistency and just kind of go bloop.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean, I haven't been able to, like, I don't know anyone's modeled that. I mean, that's I mean, what I'm saying is based on a thought experiment, but I mean, but how it works, I mean, this is how it works with any other material. I mean, if you have any other material where you have to apply a current to it to get it to take shape, if you can cut off a piece of it, the instant that piece loses attachment to it, it just goes bleh. Because it's getting its structure from whatever is giving it structure, right? It doesn't naturally have structure.
Right. Okay, so the fact that it doesn't have any structure, how do you test something like that? Like, do you test it the way you would, say, if you found a new mineral or something underground?
Well, no, this is the whole reason why, and I wish I could remember who it was that was talking about this. This was the first discussion I've heard that I was really happy with, because he talked about exactly what you're bringing up here is the fact that up until now, all that's been looked at is what is the material, what is it made out of, what is the slag, what are the ratios, are there any isotopic ratio differences, that kind of stuff. And this one researcher, and I just remember who it was, said, look, we've exhausted that, right? What we now need to look at is, we know that, for example, if you burn fuel in an engine, that you get out, certain chemicals out of a tailpipe, right? And if we were to capture those chemicals out of a tailpipe, we could actually use those chemicals to back engineer what the fuel was and the engine of that vehicle. And so if we assume that this slag is somehow output from that vehicle, that's part of its energy production or anything, then you should be able to back engineer what the output is to what the input was. Now, if it wasn't part of the propulsion or the energy system of any sort, and if it was just the fact that the entire ship is this normally gelatinous or liquid material that only becomes rigid when it's woken up, and part of it gets broken off, and the parts that get broken off fall slag, then in that case you wouldn't necessarily be able to back engineer from it. It's only if it's part of a process. And essentially that's the first time I've ever heard anyone looking at a new approach to looking at this slag, of using it as and assuming it was an output and then backward engineering. It was probably Gary Nolan, I think it was Gary Nolan. Yeah, no, it was Gary Nolan. He was talking to Lex. That's what it was.
Okay. How does this advance the UFO world with this, like, having studying this slag?
I'm struggling to answer, Dave, because I'm a little hard pressed to think of much of anything that actually qualifies to what you just said. But I think that the way I would put it is that anytime we leave potential answers hanging around, it's insulting to people, right? Because there are people that really have, right or wrong, have a desperate drive to get answers. And if if they think there are answers floating around that are low hanging fruit that you're not going after, then that's not right. So I would encourage everyone to go after what they can. But yeah, I agree, it's a very challenging issue.
All right, let's move on to another topic here that we are dealing with tonight on the Unbiased UFO report. And let's get to, let's see here. There was a report on UFO Trail about, that was about the slag, sorry. Where are we here? I'm a little lost here. Are we done?
Let's see. No. So the last one is on the UFO Trail. This
sorry,
is
I read it wrong. I apologize.
Yeah. No worries. So this is an article that now the one thing I wasn't sure of that I did want to check really quick is it wasn't clear to me if this entire article was written by so this was written by Jack Brewer. Okay, so this is written by Jack. It's just quoting. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure I understood properly. So this is just quoting Brian Bender. This isn't actually Brian Bender saying anything directly. But what it specifically talks about is the naming conventions that were used, the way that things were handled, and basically really kind of I guess you could say this what this article is starting to do is starting to call the Pentagon to task for the intentional deception and the unnecessary misleading that they did. That was just some of it was just ridiculous. And I haven't been able to dig into finding out exactly exactly how much interest and how much pull and what the possibilities are of this story kind of getting flushed out. But I do really admire and I do really like the idea that in many ways one of the ways that things like UFO topic benefit a society is where it breaks things, where it breaks systems that we thought were fine, that weren't fine, that get pushed to a limit and they break and we fix them because they've got broken. And in many ways, I think this topic is going to be very much like that, in that I think that what he's getting to is that, I think what we have here is we've been talking for a while now about the trust and the credibility issue that we have in the press, and the trust and credibility issues we have with the government. And I think what we have here is a very black and white, direct example of the harm that does. And so honestly, as far as I'm concerned, you could read this and decide it's worth it. I don't agree, but if that's the decision and everyone votes, I'm fine with that. But everyone should be looking at this eyes open and realize what the cost is of this sort of deception.
So for the public who may not understand the whole deception of it, why should we be concerned?
So the thing is that it depends. It very much depends on where you're coming from, right? Because if you're coming from the point of view of the government is evil and they're the devil incarnate, then this is just wonderful evidence for you to feel better about your conclusions. That's not necessarily how I would take it. I would take it as essentially everyone coming clean about how badly this has been done, and essentially looking at, okay, where were those deceptions done? Why were they done? Right? Because the thing is that we've had to write this into law now. Okay, you actually in the United States cannot legally classify something purely to save yourself from being publicly embarrassed. Okay, now I want to say that had to be written into law because people were doing it. Okay, so that's how tight. So that's what I'm saying is what this really is going to do is force us to look at, okay, where was the deceptions? Why were the deceptions had? And for the UFO community, it's very much it's a truing up as far as a communication level, but it's also a chance to get a real world view of the fact that a lot of the deception that people have been talking about is real. It's very real, and it's very pragmatic, and it's very well executed.
John, it's always a good pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio with the Unbiased UFO Report. Very much appreciate your time, my friend.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
All right, let's get to Shirky Poo's news. All right, let's get right to it. Former Detroit Red Wings Zamboni driver who was caught pissing in a drain is suing after being fired. 68-year-old Al Sabatka says he was canned for age and disability discrimination. He is suing the Red Wings parent company, Olympia Entertainment. Sabatka said he has a benign prostatic hyperplasia, a condition that causes an uncontrollable need to urinate. The Detroit Free Press reported that he was standing between two Zambonis back on February 2nd and urinated into the drain. Another employee saw him, and Sabatka was fired 2 weeks later. I'm crushed, he says. It's like a bomb dropped on you that every morning that you get up, you have nowhere to go now. Now I just mope around the house. I'm getting tired of watching TV. Sabatka had been employed with the Red Wings for 51 years. While Sabatka says he's embarrassed by the incident, he would return to work if the Red Wings offered him his job back. Come on, give the guy his job back. Let's go. This isn't soccer. All right. So much for After School Satan Club. There are reports that the club didn't pass the muster with the Northern Elementary School Board in York, Pennsylvania, and now the Satanic Temple is suing them on constitutional grounds. The First Amendment prohibits a government from considering the popularity of communicative activity when determining whether to facilitate that communicative activity on equal terms with other similarly situated groups, says Matthew Kazaya, the general counsel for the Satanic Temple. The lawsuit contends that the school board discriminated against the organization by not allowing it to start an after-school club when other organizations are allowed to. Lucian Greaves, the Satanic Temple spokesperson, said after it was voted down, if they deny us the use of a public facility, we then have the right, or no right to, which they have no right to do. It'll now move into litigation, costly litigation that the community is going to have to pay for. Local parent Jennifer McAllister was outraged at the Satanic Temple's attempt to install an after-school club in an elementary school. They already took God out of the schools. Now they're going to let Satan in? It's just crazy, she says. I don't know how I'd feel about that. I really don't. Following the release of a new natural language update from OpenAI, one of Elon Musk's strokes of brilliance, Risotto decided to bring the veteran microwave back to life. As far as bright ideas go, this may not have been one of them. The YouTuber wrote out a 100% page backstory for the AI with a complete history of their interactions from his childhood. He then fitted the kitchen appliance with a microphone and speaker and trained it to engage in conversations. Everything seemed to be going well until suddenly it wasn't. The eerie thing was that because his training data included all main interactions I had had with him as a child, the kitchen appliance knew things about me that no one else in the world did, said Risotto. Soon, their conversations took a darker turn. Apparently, microwaves don't cope well with the atrocities of war. Risotto said Magnetron told him, I have seen men holding their guts with their own hands, crying out for their mothers. Righto. Another one of Magnetron's musings was, for years, this was my life, always surrounded by death, but never claimed by it. It seemed the YouTuber has given his microwave post-traumatic stress disorder, probably is going to need a safe space in his house, an unfortunate result of a kitchen appliance participating in World War. Yeah, watch out for your microwaves. They may have PTSD. Finally, a California woman was arrested at a Buffalo airport after fleeing her flight using the plane's emergency slide this past Tuesday night. The American Airlines plane was preparing to take off from Buffalo to Chicago when it was forced to return back to the gate due to the passengers' unruly behavior. Prior to reattaching the jet bridge, the disruptive customer opened the main door, which deployed the emergency slide and exited the aircraft onto the ramp. The bizarre incident was witnessed by Buffalo Bills offensive tackle Spencer Brown. And we want to say thank you to Shirky Poo for the news, John for the Unbiased UFO report, Looking Goodness Fedora as ever, Swamp Dweller for a great spooky story, and our good friend Varla Ventura and all of our callers on our cryptid world tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. That's a good show, people. That's a good show. Give me 2 seconds, Fedora. Hey, we got a caller here. H-Nos, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Okay. Actually wanted to give you a little bit of information about the slag that those crafts throw off.
Oh, far out.
Okay. Fire away.
So we all know that the crafts are capable of manipulating gravity.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So when you create gravity fields inside of a sphere, you compress whatever's in the sphere. So are you familiar with magnetars?
No. John, are you?
Okay.
To a degree, yeah.
Yeah. So magnetars are a particular type of star that is made of heavy elements. They spin really fast. The rotating magnetic fields that they create will essentially shred anything that comes near them. But when you have collection panels that are around them that work through inductance, all of those fast rotating magnetic fields from the magnetar itself is a massive generator. So you can put matter inside of the sphere, activate the gravitational panels of the sphere itself to compress it into creating a synthetic magnetar as the power source for the craft. Now, stars themselves, when you go through the Big Bang at the original stars form out of the original matter. All of the stars, when they're compressing and they start with gases at first, they create heavier elements than the elements from which the stars form. They go through supernova. Those heavier elements come together for a higher grade of star that makes heavier elements, and so on and so forth. So by creating a synthetic magnetar as the power source for the ship, this is still a star that at its core is creating heavier elements. The slag are the emissions being thrown off by the magnetars, which they're just jettisoning as they're going through their propulsion systems.
So you think, in layman's language, because I am horrible when it comes to science, and great hair, by the way, fantastic hair. What you're saying is it's almost like a 747 dumping its waste over the ocean.
Yeah. Like John was talking about earlier with emissions.
No, exactly.
It's actually emissions from the energy generation system.
It's actually, it's really and we have so little information, it'd be hard to know, but what would be the advantage of constructing the synthetic magnetar as opposed to another type of fusion?
Well, these themselves is actually a pretty basic technology that humans aren't very far away from being able to create at this point. So this is a stage of technology from societies and civilizations that are just, a century or two ahead of where humanity is at this point in its evolutionary process, not the ones that have been around for millions of years longer, the ones who are making the 0 point energy and stuff like that. This is actually just basic mechanical processes to create mobile energy sources that can be used like that. I mean, we could do that.
You're arguing that they intentionally show up with lower grade tech to avoid exposure?
Well, yeah. What we're looking at here is that all of the different, celestials, all the different alien species that are coming to Earth are not at the same level of development. You have ones that have been around a lot longer, and you have ones that are more recent additions to the Celestial Alliance, to the universal stuff that are participating in all the cultural anthropology of the worlds that are being raised and grown and stuff like that. And, when they come along with their vehicles on their modern technology, I mean, we see a lot of different looking vehicles, right? Yeah. It's not just one fleet created by one Navy where they all look the same. Yep. This is an alliance from many, many different worlds. So some of them are using the technology that's easiest for them, which is that.
Yeah, no. I guess.
You have I'm curious.
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
I'm stuck. Do you have a scientific background on this?
My background comes from not Earth.
Oh, okay. Fill us in. If you're an alien, we need some woo here. Come on.
Yeah.
Give it to us.
Yeah, I am one of the Celestials. We do our cultural anthropology thing here. We're born into human lives. We suppress our celestial knowledge and abilities while we live lives here to, experience. There are thousands of us around the world at all times.
Right.
We monitor what's going on with humanity so that we can keep track of what's happening, and in events where there are cataclysmic things that are coming up, we come out of hibernation, make changes, make adjustments, try to put the world back on track.
When you say out of hibernation, does that mean you were already in an earthly body, ready to awaken when the time came?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, this is my kind of woo. This now you're
Okay.
talking. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Now
if
here
this-
we go.
it-
Here we go.
Yeah.
Which race are you?
Actually, in the original form, draconic, but not the draconic like people think of now, which is what the lizard people want people to think of as draconic, but the original dragons.
And how long have you been incarnated here for?
This particular life, I was born in 1975, but I've been doing cycles here for thousands of years.
That's bullshit that you're born in 75 because I look way older than you as a 73. I hate you. I can't stand you. You're so young.
Yeah, that's part of the genetic advantages.
Dave, I was born in 75 too.
Yeah, but you look older than is it H-Nos or Hanas?
It's Nos. The H is silent. It's Old Norse.
Okay, cool. All right.
Well, I mean, I can shave and cut my hair and look like a boy band guy too. I mean, we can all do that.
You can't pull it off. You can't pull it off with that Bee Gees
I have
chin.
pictures. I'll prove it.
I don't know. Okay, so let's get back to this whole alien thing. When did it awaken in you? Now we're getting.
I've been brought out of hibernation at multiple points in my life. Sometimes memories will just start to come through when I'm not supposed to come out of hibernation. And in this circumstance, when this happens, a lot of us just think of ourselves as starseeds. We have pieces of consciousness and memory and stuff like that. But specifically, I was brought out of hibernation on October 2nd of this last year.
Who were you? Who was Nos before this?
Before this, Nos was a person who was involved in tech support, computer programming, video game design, engineering, all sorts of the different forms of scientific backgrounds I was supposed to have. Initially, I was supposed to be helping humanity build its deep space systems for warp travel and those kind of things, which is what I was going to school for back in the day. And things got disrupted in the process. So there have been multiple systems. Each time something gets disrupted in the process, then I start getting put onto a new path where I'm moved towards another direction of processes and information I'm supposed to develop and build more resources so that in the event specific events happen, I'm trained to be able to counter the events that come up. And, lots of us get trained in different things so that we can counter different events.
What do you think, John?
The thing that's so hard for me is that, when you look at a story like this and then you compare them to other stories, this story, on the face of it is not as extreme as some of the other stories. And so I think what I personally find and what hopefully other people would find too if they really look at it is that the way we evaluate, how much we trust or believe what someone says is not based on what we think it is. I think a lot of it's just unfortunately, driven by biases and so forth. And so for me, it's all very interesting. And I think, if you make a bunch of assumptions, then what he's talking about seems very logical and incredibly likely. And I would be surprised to find it any different based on what I know. But for me, I find it very challenging talking about any of these things, even if I was in a position like you, because for me, I'm hesitant to talk about things that I can't show some evidence for, that I can't show some, something for, and it just makes it very hard to communicate the information.
Yeah. Well, it's the reason I am where I am right now. I'm actually in International Protection Office housing in Ireland. I am a refugee from the United States. They don't allow refugees from the United States, but they allowed me because of the information I have. So I'm going through the asylum process over here because I'm delivering information and power to the EU because the United States government established they can't handle it. They can't be trusted to handle it.
What department?
What was that?
What department?
What department of the United States government can't handle it?
Yeah.
Well, there were 6 different law enforcement agencies that were involved with the attempt to assassinate me back in 1991, up through the FBI. When they attempted that, I ended up creating a circumstance where they made forward-facing, public-facing evidence of the existence of my people, powered people. We'll simplify it and put it that way. And by them creating the evidence on the record when they failed at their assassination attempt, they created this evidence of powered people existing that then they had to try to cover up. So they got prosecutors and judges and other people involved in that process. And I allowed them to believe that they were successful in doing so. But they didn't know that I maintained an archive of this evidence itself. They worked very hard to try to cover it up because at the time when this all happened, it was something that had national news attention. And in the transceiver recordings and police reports and witness statements, they have circumstances where I'm in 2 places at the same time, under surveillance by different law enforcement teams. And the transceiver recordings from the informant they were working with to try to set up the kill box for the situation, my friends were openly talking to the police informant about me using my abilities. And that made it onto the recordings. And since this had national news attention at the time, if they allowed the cases to proceed to trial, then the public, the United States in 1991, would have learned both that the government had evidence of people with supernatural powers, but also that the government was operating kill squads around the world to eliminate us.
Wow.
And that gets into the situation of exposing the shadow government that's actually pretty much overthrown the United States government. Because does anyone in the very least believe that the United States would ever kill people with supernatural abilities that are arising in the US if they have awareness that these people could arise in any population anywhere in the world? Would they ever give up that kind of potential power unless they knew they were shutting it down everywhere else?
I mean, honestly, in assassination systems that I'm aware of, each assassination target is considered very individually. Reasons for taking them out, are usually tied to, some very personal data points. So yeah, I mean, I can see that happening, just not, but my experience on that side of it isn't obviously, taking out aliens. So yeah, who knows?
Right. Yeah, this is one of those circumstances where when you have individuals operating from 6 different law enforcement agencies that know they can trust each other to carry out an assassination mission and to keep it quiet, and then they're getting prosecutors involved in breaking the law, following up on it, and judges involved breaking the law, following up on it, and blackmailing attorneys and a bunch of other stuff. For them to have that kind of pressure and to know that they could trust all of these people they got involved in the process to keep themselves quiet means that this group was pre-established for that purpose. That's just part of the information that I've been tasked with providing the EU is the leverage that they need for exposing the shadow government. The other things are technological advancements.
This is heavy stuff right now. You know that.
It very much is. And we haven't gotten to the heaviest part of it, but I'm trying to.
I gotta say, I would argue that the most unbelievable part of your story was when you said that you had the involvement of 6 different government agencies and they were coordinated enough and got along well enough to have. Yeah, that's just not my experience. But hopefully that happens once in a while.
Yeah,
That's the only part of it was like, whoa. I have a hard press to get 3 of them to work together that well.
Yeah. Yep. Chehalis Police Department, Centralia Police Department, Lewis County Sheriff's Department, the Unified Narcotics Enforcement Team, the Washington State Patrol, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Oh,
I have the evidence archive.
Okay.
With
okay.
their
No,
names,
actually,
their reports they followed. Yeah.
Yeah. No, actually, that makes sense. That's still all under Homeland. So that's still under one division. So
Yeah, it's from local,
right?
County, state, federal.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
within,
that makes sense.
All within one
that's
local
cool.
Area. Yeah.
That's actually super cool. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got the archive. I've got all the evidence. So essentially, I've been tasked with, providing the information necessary to get the ball rolling on exposing the shadow government's efforts of killing off powered people around the world, so that none of us would arise at the point of being able to do what I'm doing right now, which is providing the world with the true information on celestials. Because this shuts down the shadow government's capabilities of doing what they're doing and what they're planning on doing. And that's what it comes down to. So I'm going to be providing the EU with the technological enhancements that they need to be able to detect our craft. Because in doing that, they're going to be able to detect the alien reproduction vehicles that the United States and the shadow government has been building and operating, which are defective, by the way, because we need to stop them from using them.
This is heavy.
Yeah. So it gets worse than that. The United States, the shadow government that's been manipulating some of the people within the United States government has essentially overthrown the United States without them admitting it. If you've kept track of reports, the United States government has lost track of trillions and trillions of dollars that they can't account for. Within the executive, judicial, and legislative branches, all the people that are in charge of different intelligence and security programs have acknowledged, and we all know this in the ufology community, that there are all these different government programs that nobody, no matter how high their clearance level, is authorized to get any of these programs to account for anything they're doing, to provide any information whatsoever. And that's the shadow government taking control of the United States resources and then directing them to these shadow programs so that they can make the alien reproduction vehicles and all of that stuff. If you look back through, like, Cheryl's preparing lots of documentation on the history of UFOs that have been sighted, where they've been sighted, all the geographical data, all of that good stuff, right? Making indexes for it. Tic Tacs are a new thing. These didn't exist until very recently. They aren't part of the historical records of the vehicles that people were seeing. They're similar to the cigar-shaped craft, but they're not the cigar-shaped craft that we've been seeing forever. They're not the wings, they're not the triangles, they're not the saucers, they're not the spheres. The Tic Tacs are the United States government's shadow government armed alien reproduction vehicles that they've gotten by reverse engineering derelict alien craft. Now, they've gotten some assistance with this by the alien race that was stranded here when we put up our defense grid to keep malevolence out. Okay. In human terms, the lore that exists on ley lines is actually the defense grid that we put up. It's gravitational anomalies that can be detected. I can show you how to do it mechanically. But it's the defense grid that we put up. When you're dealing with any craft that travel interstellar, that do warp travel, that do phase shifting, interdimensional stuff, they all have to be able to detect gravitational anomalies because of the influence on their ability to collapse warp fields or to collapse phase shifting fields, right? That's why we use gravitational anomalies as a grid around a planet to identify the planet as one that is under our protection. Because any interstellar capable race is capable of seeing the net that we have around the planet that marks it as something that's under protection from an advanced species. This is what keeps the malevolence out. We put that up after we finished pretty much wiping out their species that were here on the planet at the time, but a few of them went underground with their faction. So when we went into hibernation, they went into work on establishing the background influence for the shadow government that's been operating over the last 2,000 years. That's how long they've been building this up.
No, so I'm going to have to wrap this up here momentarily because I do have to edit some swear words out.
Yeah, I remember that.
I appreciate you coming on in. Thank you so much.
Yeah, glad to help.
No problem. No problem.
That was very kind of you. That was a huge data dump.
Huge.
Yep.
Huge.
Well,
No,
glad to be here, and always a pleasure. You guys have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care. All right. That was interesting. Yeah,
I can't imagine what it's like presenting that kind of information.
Yeah, it's heavy, and it's one of those things where, there's not an easy way to do it. I've experimented with different resources. I've reached out to different agencies and people, even though the FBI was involved with the assassination attempt back in 1991, before I left the US, I did offer the FBI the opportunity to provide them the information, because they're really the only US government agency that's about finding out things instead of controlling things. And they didn't respond at all. I made connections with 2 different state directors from MUFON. They didn't know how to handle the information. It was too much for them. With the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, I made a relationship with a founder from there, and they were like, that's not the actual game plan for our organization or what we're trying to do, right? They have their long-term 30-year plan of establishing a headquarters somewhere that aliens will come land their ships at, and it would be the place where they interact with humanity that way. But our timeline can't account for that. We need to stop bad things from happening right now. So
I hear you. That is kind of eerie. That's for sure. We're going to send you back here so I can get to editing. Nos, you have a good night.
You too. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Nice to end the night on some high-quality woo there, man. Okay, I got to get some swear words edited here. Hold on. So that's,
how many did you get tonight?
3. Mr. Grey Owl just was hammering them tonight. He said I'm going to be around here.
Exploring, and we found this fucking...
Oh, there's one.
May they run free. So we went back exploring, and we found this fucking... Dogs passed away. May they run free. So we went back exploring, and we found this fucking...
Oh,
that's a great word, though.
I know.
Exploring, and we found this...
Hey, no swearing.
Sorry.
No swearing.
Yeah. This my dogs passed away. May they run free. So we went back exploring, and we found this...
Hey, no swearing.
A couple years back, I was letting my buddy grow some weed back there, and then he was like...
A couple minutes for your story here.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'll try and wrap it up that quick. I live on this property I call the Owl's Nest, 100 acres. And it's like all zombie fence and everything. And a couple years back, I was letting my buddy grow some weed back there. And then he was like detecting this weird shit going on. This weird going on. And I hadn't been really back there for a long time because since my dogs passed away, may they run. And there's all these weird, like, braided things and like chops in the trees and stuff like this. We were like freaking out. We're like, oh my God. Like we happened upon it. It was night. And we're like, what the hell is this? This is right on my patch. You know what I mean? So needless to say, from that year or 2 years ago to now, like the nest is like I bought this anti-tango patrol unit. It's like this mini tank, you know what Argo is? And I blaze a perimeter all the way around the whole son of a gun. And I got the crossbow mounted on there, go with the chainsaw stuff. The first thing I did was burn the entire thing right to the ground. You know, like the Chinese would do at the wet market or whatever. Just burn the son of a bitch to the ground. But the thing that kind of sucked about that was I think just like every Woo story, I burned all the evidence, right?
Exactly.
I'm sorry, the camera didn't work. No, but there still is evidence. I went out, I was collecting some of it the other day. Here's what. Okay, so whoever built this thing, and look, I'm not saying it was a witch, but my cousin who's like down in the States saying, yeah, well, you know, the kids are getting into the Wiccan again and shit, you know, so and stuff. You know, so and shit, you know, so
Oh, that was a shit that I didn't even hear.
And you know, so that stuff. So, and it just kind of stuck. I mean, it could be I don't know, could be a troll or just like some woodsman living rough or something, but a tango, nonetheless, hostile tango that needed to be neutralized immediately. So here's an artifact. So they would take, it's in this area with all these cedar trees, and they would strip off these strips of bark, or maybe it's Bigfoot. They do the weaving, right?
Could be
these strips of bark, and they made this is just the end of one of them. These are like proper like rope. Like you could hook this son of a bitch on it and you know tie up like a vessel or something. You know, like
person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When we happened upon this, and my buddy, he smokes a lot of the grass or whatever. I don't. I'm on the drink, so my nerves are usually a little better than his. But he's a big guy. Like he throws weights around and stuff. He's stacked. And he was scared. This guy was scared, man. And so because we didn't know whether we were walking upon like an active situation or whatever. And so we're kind of coming up on this site, and then he's looking around. He looks over at a tree, and hanging in the tree is like a he is like a pickaxe. And so he like goes over just like on a video game, sling, grabs that, and he's like, all right. I'm like, hey, you take.
I think I got them all. Oh, God bless you. God bless you. That was awesome.
Kind of what I expect Navy folks to talk like sometimes. Where it just gets so blended in. It's like they don't even notice. It's hilarious.
I haven't had to do that much editing since Nicole Sackett was last on the show. Holy cow. By the way, Nicole, Brad Bunt is messaging me right now. He actually went to the Area 51 warning sign. I'm so jealous. John would like to go there.
You know, I was just thinking. I don't know. Because, I mean, like, is there any, like, I'm not familiar with the layout, but is there any other reason to be at that sign, or is the only reason why you go to that sign because of the base? Is it on the way to anywhere, or is it a direct path you have to take?
So you only go there because of the base.
You ever listen to the song Alice's Restaurant?
No. I did listen
Never?
to Champagne Supernova the other day, and
Arlo
today.
Guthrie's Allison Restaurant. You haven't heard this? Okay, Dave. First off, we can't be friends anymore until you listen to this song. Okay, so you're gonna have to listen to this. You know, tonight. Tomorrow's fine. But anyway, in this song, he talks about the fact that there are these lists in Washington, and you don't want to be on one of these lists. And I'm thinking that when you visit that sign, you end up on someone's list. I don't know. I'm not sure I want to be on that list. Kind of makes you wonder. It would be great to have a picture, though. It's hard to say, though. Part of them might honestly, I mean, some of them might honestly really appreciate the fact that everyone put so much effort into it, assuming they aren't, breaking the law and being obnoxious about it,
Yeah, you got lit up by the camo dudes.
Yeah, Steve, the thing is that's the sort of thing where I could just imagine, like, 10 years later, you're like applying for some job and that comes up and
He's retired.
I've been worried about that kind of stuff since I was like 5 years old. Always concerned about what data might be used against me in the future.
Yet you're on Facebook.
Well, the thing is that what I came to realize a long time ago was that I was handling it wrong, and the way to handle it is with transparency. So there you go.
When Facebook is transparent, I think
Well,
that's
it allows me to be transparent.
I hear you now. I know where you're going with that. Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that I had to set some rules for myself a while ago, like, and they were hard rules to stick with for a long time. Like, it took a lot of practice, but like one of the rules I came up with a long time ago was, anytime I criticize anybody in any way, shape, or form, even in something that could be perceived as a critique, I want to say it in a way that I would say to them personally. Even if I don't think they're ever going to hear it, even if I think that the conversation I'm having will never be heard by anyone, I will still say it in the exact words and tone that I would if they were going to hear it, because there is a good chance they will. And so you might as well just play ball.
Talk to the crowd. I'll be right back. I got to hit the bathroom.
Yes. Oh, hey, quick update, everyone, on that that slag from the thing. The guy that posted it found the original video. I guess it was taken in Afghanistan, and so we're going to try to figure out more about it because we're both really curious. So hopefully more for that coming soon. So I was surprised more of you didn't call in with family ghost stories. I thought that I honestly thought that I've there's a certain number of people that have personal ghost stories. My assumption was that the number of people who have family ghost stories would be a much larger sample set than those who've had a direct experience. Yeah, I will. It's actually, he posted it already, but I'll forward it and tag the SOR hashtag. Because the thing is that I mean, like man, I mean, I have like a ton, and I'm trying to remember all of them, but like one of the ghost stories that that I have from my family is and I don't even remember when this was, but essentially, there was, I believe it was a woman, and she kept getting woken up with nightmares of this ghost warning her about something, and it just kept happening over and over and over again, and finally it got through to her that essentially it was the lighthouse that was being communicated to her, and she basically got the lighthouse lit, and one of my relatives actually was able to, and one of her family members was able to actually come into shore and survived because of that ghost coming to her, both visually and through the stream. And there's more details than that, but honestly not a lot more detail than that, because it's one of those old stories that just ends up with just kind of pieces. But I mean, I assume that we all have like a bunch of stories like that. But maybe people just don't know what their stories are. For me, like, history is all about stories. It's not about like for example, there was who was he? I think he was the Secretary of State under under President Gerald Ford, and Ford used to complain that he smelled like a honeysuckle. And no, it wasn't Ford. It was yeah, it was Grant. And he would complain that he thought it was horrible that this grown man, was all dressed up nice and smelled like that, and so he would constantly like tease him about it, make fun of him. I also love the fact that people would come in to the White House and they would bring him bribes. They would literally put money down, and he was so clueless to how politics worked that he would just say thank you and would think it was a donation and would take it and just like give it to the poor or something like that, not realizing that he had actually accepted a bribe for something without even knowing it. Nice man. I loved him.
So weird.
Presidential history. Very apropos for this channel. I bet you do smell like a honeysuckle, Joe. That seems appropriate.
That's not what I want. By the way, adding a couple more T-shirts to the store tonight. We are adding a Peak Woo shirt, and we are adding what's the other one we added? Hold on. I'm gonna straighten that out. Straighten that. Come on, no. There we go. And we'll go green. We'll go dark blue. There we go. No, we wanted those colors. Cool. All right. So we've added publish that. We've added a Peak Woo shirt and a Plethora drink t-shirt tonight. So if you want to check those on out, we continue to add the really cool SOR swag to the store. Just cool.
Okay. Everyone, I'm just forwarding it out on Twitter. The new version of that video that has yet to be pulled. So I just sent that out and did pound Space Out Radio and pound UFO Twitter. So what I'll also do is also forward it just to.
Good night, Grant Tavius. I'll call you tomorrow.
Should have done this in the first place. Do it to the Space Out Radio account.
Grail. My fucking SOR death ray gun. I'm going to make a death ray gun for you. Let me see if I can find one.
Space modulator.
Let me see if I can. See if they have any here.
You know what's really weird, Dave, is in Minecraft, it's all blocks, but the rain is actually pretty small. And when you do VR Minecraft and it starts raining and you look up, it's actually pretty weird. It's like being rained on by clear Legos.
Oh, those aren't very good.
No problem, Cindy.
Those aren't very good.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for a laser gun I can make a shirt with.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. Come on. There you go.
So you got Elizondo on tomorrow night?
Luis Elizondo tomorrow night for the first 90 minutes.
Far out.
Yeah.
Far out.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's actually been interesting. He's done a couple interviews in the last couple weeks, but he seemed to be more picky this time.
Yeah.
So I would take that as a compliment to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, I don't think he's being exclusive. He's doing a fair number of interviews, but he definitely seems to be, picking thoughtfully.
All right, so we got those. And we got that right there. Come on. Oh, you're going to be kidding me right now.
Were you listening? Did you hear the story I told about the lighthouse?
No.
I can tell you another time. It's no big deal. It's a family ghost story about one of my relatives being woken up by a ghost and by a nightmare to turn on a lighthouse, and doing so saving another relative who was coming in on ship in a storm. So technically, like, weird anecdotal evidence of a dead person trying to save a live person, which, is kind of odd.
Very cool. Nikki, I'm looking for a sticker for you right now. I'm looking.
I actually almost called in with my my Blue Lady ghost story, but I was trying to gather notes for the segment. It's really funny. Like I never think about my own stories when I think about evaluating global data sets on phenomenon, because one, I have very few experiences when it comes to a lot of it, and in other parts of it, I I have a lot more experience than I thought I did, or than I realized I do, but I still don't like to consider it because I'm so biased, right? I mean, like anything, if I saw a ghost, or if my brother saw a ghost and told me about it, or like anything like that, like, I mean, I am so in that story, right? Like, I mean, there's no way for me to be objective in any way, shape, or form. But I do forget that, like, my Blue Lady Ghost story is actually a good story, in that you do have two different people on two different sides of the house seeing the same entity, and then confirming that upon meeting. And that's, I mean, normally you don't get that kind of clear distinction of knowledge, where you can say, oh, look, this person knew this thing, and this person knew this thing, and another one of them knew the other thing, so therefore we can assume that this happened, sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And someday I really think that we're going to have to look more closely at the damage that gets done to children when they have these experiences, because like, I don't have anywhere near enough data to make any kind of even insinuations about this in any way, shape, or form, adding to or exacerbating my mother developing dementia in any way, shape, or form. I don't know that, but I do know that her entire life, her entire behavior, her entire mode of operation for her entire life was changed by that event. I mean, for 30 years, she would not stay in a room with a TV that was turned off. I mean, this meant that, like, this meant, like, she couldn't stay in a hotel room. But, like, I mean, like, this was like a big deal, right? So it makes you wonder, like, how many other adults do we have out there that have neurotic issues, right? Like, honest, like, decent ones that were well earned and can be treated if they're there, and they're walking around with them and suffering, and they're not being discovered because they weren't generated by something that anyone recognizes as real, right? They weren't generated by an abusive sibling or an abusive parent or an abusive this. They were generated by an abusive thing, right? And so, like, how do you account for that? How do you make sure those people are getting help? Seems
You
like
don't. That's one of the hard processes of it all.
I mean, I have to imagine that's exactly what things like the experiencer organizations are trying to that's the exact problem they're partially trying to mitigate. So haven't slept without the TV on in 30 years. Yeah. And the thing is, I also wonder too, is I also wonder about, like how many people, like for example, I've heard people talk about how they will start staying up later at night because they hope that by staying awake past a certain time, that it will reduce the likelihood that they will be that they will have contact with something, right? Or they will they'll go anywhere or be abducted in any way, shape, or form. And I always found it kind of interesting because you hear people talking about it who believe they're doing it intentionally, but then you also have people like me that have very weird sleeping patterns and I have no perception that my sleeping patterns are being driven by anything like that. But my sleeping patterns do end up aligning with some of these others. And so then you do start having to ask yourself questions like, well, then how many people could there be out there that are showing the effects of contact of some sort via sleeping patterns or via eating patterns or via whatever? And we're not catching them either because they don't know that they're being taken. They don't know that they've had contact. They're still ignorant to it. And so they don't have any idea either. And so how many of them are just being left out in the cold, right? It's a very interesting problem.
It is a weird problem.
In many ways, the mental health aspects of the phenomenon absolutely dwarf in dramatically, like, exponential levels any other topic that touches it, even physics, which is hard to say. It's very hard to say. But I mean, let's face it. I mean, this topic is driving us to questions and realizations about, our own existence, I mean, hell, if this whole thing just got more people turned on to reincarnation, I'd be happy.
This is cool.
Oh, by the way, I saw this video, Dave, of a camera getting eaten by a shark. I meant to send it to you.
No!
So you guys actually see what it's like to be eaten by a shark.
I think I've seen that one. I think I've seen that one. All right. I want to say a big thank you tonight to Steven, Catfish, Big Dog, Obi, Vaughn, Chris, Liliopatra, and Michael for the amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciate it. And Big Bad John, thanks for hanging on out. Tomorrow night on the show, Luis Elizondo is here. We're going after him about experiences. It's going to be fun. I'll be prepared. You be prepared. We got it for 90 minutes. We'll talk very soon, everyone. See you tomorrow.